A video game addict finds himself in a new world inside a mysterious game called Alan, and begins his journey to uncover the secrets of the summoner class, overcoming challenges with no clues or guidance.
This story begins as our protagonist's favorite game shuts down all of its servers. With the game gone, the protagonist realizes that he will have to touch his unfind and find games in Yaktobit. So, he gets to searching for a hardcore game on the internet, and comes across a game that claims to have no ending. With the protagonist's interest already at its peak, he starts feeling like he's up for a real challenge. So, he chooses the hardest difficulty, Hell Mode, and also the hardest class summoner. The second he hits play, the computer literally absorbs him inside the game world, and basically reincarnates him as a newborn youngling. His father is happy to learn that he's gotten a son and names him Alan. Alan receives a lot of love from both his parents, so he feels glad even though he's born into a poor farmer's family. Over the next couple of months, he learns that he is currently in a rural village where most of the people cultivate land and pay taxes to their feudal lord. Alan's dad, Rudin, is a farmer and his mother, Teresia, is a housewife. Since both Rudin and Teresa are in their early 20s, Alan believes that he will soon have younger siblings and can't wait to become part of a bigger family. One night, Alan recalls the basic Isekai trope and uses the command stat window open. It works, but instead of a holographic system menu popping up, a grimoire appears, causing Alan to freak out. He quickly uses the command stat window close before his parents come in and pretends as if he is asleep. After making sure the parameters are clear, he summons the grimoire again and goes through its pages. The first page has Alan's stats written down, and as expected, all of them are at the lowest rank. The next page entails the details of Alan's summoning skill, and reading it, Alan learns that he apparently is already able to summon H-ranked insects and beasts. The book suddenly glows and flips itself to a new page. It's a message from Elmia, the creator of this world, who explains that the summoner class is still under beta testing, so he apologizes if Alan faces any difficulties because of his chosen class. Alan doesn't care about the message and proceeds to summon an insect, but no matter how many times he tries the incantation, the summoning spell just doesn't work. Alan thinks hard for a solution and realizes that perhaps he needs to create the relevant beast first. So, he creates an H-ranked insect card. But as he's about to summon the beast, he notices that his mom, Teresia, is coming. So, he pretends to be asleep again, but ends up actually falling asleep. The next early morning, Rudin goes outside and starts chopping wood while Teresia gets to cleaning their clothes. As both parents are busy outside, Alan uses this opportunity and uses the insect summoning spell, causing his room to be filled with luminescent balls of spirits. Fortunately for Alan, his mom isn't paying attention, so he quickly gets on with it, and as the spirit balls are condensed once again, they manifest into a cat-sized grasshopper. Seeing its angry expression, Alan wonders if this creature will even listen to his commands. He decides to still give it a try, and with his half-broken youngling voice, orders the bug to fly to his hands. Bug, however, turns the other way, making Alan wonder if it's dumb or something. He suspects that the reason the grasshopper isn't listening to his commands must be because he hasn't met the necessary conditions yet. So, he checks the grimoire and looks at the grasshopper's stat menu. He picks the name Dina for the green bug and then looks at its stats when he learns that this tiny little insect actually gives him +1 endurance and agility. This fact causes Alan to blurt out the word awesome on impulse, prompting his mom to enter the room. Seeing the ugly insect grosses Teresia out, and she instinctively stomps on it. Despite this accident, Alan continues to test his summoning skill whenever he gets the opportunity, and one day decides to summon a beast. A white rat comes out, and as expected of an H-rank beast, it's also dumb as bricks, just like Dina. Still, Alan gives it the name Mousy, and then looks at its stats when he learns that it actually has an ability called Scurry. Alan manages to activate this ability, causing Mousy to scurry around him. This makes him wonder what kind of strong monsters he can potentially summon and control. For now, he can only create a total of 10 summoning cards. So, he creates 10 Mousy cards, and as a result, his attack stats get a plus boost because of Mousy's buff. With this boost, he can now easily chop wood, even though he's only a year old. But he still doesn't think it's enough. This makes him wonder how much easier the game would have been if he had chosen any other difficulty. So he regrets picking Hell mode. Rodin comes back home with myoglobin all over him, making Teresia worry if he's hurt. But Rodin claims to be fine, explaining that he went to a boar hunt earlier, which caused this. Rodin asks Alan if he'd like to see the boar they've hunted down, and as Alan excitedly nods, Rodin carries him to the place where the beast is being carved up. On their way there, they see a flock of birds called albihirons, who are no less than dinosaurs in size, so Rodin refers to them as monsters. Rodin tells Alan a fun fact, saying that he named him after those birds, hoping that he too would live a free life and fly around wherever he wants to in this world. He sleeps off on Rodin's hands, as Rodin walks to take him to his creature. When they eventually arrive at the location, Rodin wakes him up and shows him the great boar. When he touches the great boar, the first thing he thinks about is the fact that the monster is so great, and he doubts that he can successfully defeat that kind of monster. One of their neighbors, Settei, walks up to Rodin and hypes him up as the star of the day. The other villagers there hail Rodin because that kind of victory isn't one that anyone can achieve. So Rodin had done so well. Settei notices Alan and comments on Alan's black hair and eyes. Alan greets him in return, and he is shocked that Alan can talk at the age of 1. He comments that Alan is growing so much better than Krita, his daughter, who is about the same age as Alan. Alan asks about the great boar and how strong it is. So Settei explains that the great boar is a C-ranked monster. It isn't some Tuartleman Tokilit. This only gives Alan enough opportunity to gauge himself and think of how he could be better. 10 months pass by as fast as possible, and Alan is now 1 year and 10 months old. He keeps trying his hand at his skills, and he realizes that he can now summon G-ranked monsters. He can also successfully fuse together H and G rank monsters. He has cards of both H and G ranked monsters and checks his cards, then tries to use his newly acquired power, but he gets a notification that he has low MP. He assumes the problem is hunger, so he goes to eat his meal. He rushes a huge plate of food, and his parents look visibly concerned. Turns to his room immediately to check his powers. When he tries to fuse the cards again, it doesn't work. Again, he has low MP. He considers summoning another card, but again, he has low MP. Eventually, he gives up on it. 3 years pass by, and Alan is now 3 years old. He has gained enough strength and MP, and he can now fuse together his 2 cards. He fuses a G rank and an H rank card and gets a GH card. Then he summons a pet from the card. He successfully summons a bird G, and he is excited. The bird, which he names Chappie, is level 2 in agility and strength. Also has the skill voice mimic, which makes Alan assume that he could validly use it against enemies when fighting. Alan goes outside with his new pets. The first one is Hoppy, a tiny bird that hops. He asks Hoppy to hop, and he hopes to use the hopping to distract his opponents. The next is Molly, a pet that has the ability to dig. He asks Molly to dig, and Molly digs a hole, which he hopes to use to set a trap for his enemies. As he plans his imaginary life, he mistakenly falls into the hole that Molly had dug. This brings him back to the reality that he is just a child and he can't even fight anyone. It is 3 o'clock p.m., and this brings him more worries. He hears the voice that worries him and knows that she is around. The voice belongs to Krita, Settei's daughter, as she is there to play with him as usual. They play night games every day, so they both set out their swords to fight. Kita is faster than he can imagine, and she has so much strength that she overpowers the reincarnated protagonist. After hitting him as much as she could with no defense on his side, he falls down flat and loses the game. His parents arrive, and Teresa's stomach is now as big as he had earlier predicted, which means a sibling is coming. Teresa and our HDN ask Krita to return home, and they also go home. During dinner, Alan suggests to his father that he would like to follow him to the farm to help with the harvest since his mother is pregnant and won't be able to help. Rodin refuses his offer, and Teresa also insists that she is strong enough to continue. They appreciate the fact that he has been helping with the house chores, but he is still a kid, and a 3-year-old boy shouldn't be on the farm. To him, he already has the strength of an adult and can take the burden off them. However, he understands that they wouldn't want him to do that, because no parents would want to subject their child to such a thing. Teresa tells him to continue playing with Krata. They comment about his night games with Krata and how good they are. Rodin informs him that with their present skills, they can't wait to see what their abilities will be during the appraisal ceremony. Alan doesn't know about it. So Rodin explains that when they clock the age of 5, a ceremony will be held where they will learn what skills they have. If they get good skills, they will be able to break out of serfdom. Rodin also comments that he has been seeing Alan throwing stones at the tree outside and inquires why. Alan lies that it is because they told him there are monsters outside, so he wants to throw stones at them to protect his mother. The real reason he has been throwing stones is to confirm if he has any other skills besides summoning. The following day, he practices his summoning. He has gotten to the stage where he can summon all day without getting tired. He looks at his Andankatu, but gets distracted when Krita arrives. They go for their usual duel, and as usual, he loses and falls. Rodin arrives and Teresia comes to greet him. Unfortunately, Dina hops onto her and she falls in fear. She recovers after the scare jump, but suddenly gets severe stomach aches. Her water has broken and the baby is on its way. Rodin commits Krita to get her mother Matilda, while he takes Teresa to the bed, trying to help in his own way. Alan helps to boil water. He goes to inform them that the water is hot. And coincidentally, Matilda arrives too. She sends the men out of the room and helps Teresia with the delivery. The men are almost asleep outside the house when Teresa gives birth, and they call them in excitedly. Alan now has a brother, and Rodin names the child Mash, a name that Teresa questions, asking if it isn't also the name of a monster. Rodin reacts with a smile that shows her she is right. Seeing the excitement on everyone's face, Alan wonders why he was reincarnated, removing the fact that he is a game addict who just wanted to level up into a new game. He was nothing but a work addict who was lonely and lived a poor life in his previous world. There is nothing for him to miss in that life, and if he is being fair, he loves the idea of his new family. For now, all he wants to do is get his family out of serfdom. Teresia calls him to greet the baby. He goes to greet the child, who bursts into tears. He is terrified by this, and they jokingly tell him that kids are just like that. Alan is undoubtedly enjoying his new life. However, fingers crossed to see his growth. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe so you won't miss new episode every week.
After that, years pass and the child reaches the age of 5, asking his father how the appraisal ritual works. His father explains that during the ritual, if they discover he possesses a talent, he will be able to leave the status of serf. However, he must be very patient, because since the exploitation of these lands began, countless children have been born, and now most of them are 5 years old like him. As they move forward, they meet Kurena and her father, and everyone goes together to the commoner's city. Kurena was extremely excited, hoping to receive the swordsman talent to become a knight. Upon arriving at the church, Alan notices there are many boys, some of whom look very clean and are dressed better than them. He wonders if these are the commoners. While doing so, he notices a group of people looking at him and mentioning his black hair, which is very rare among serfs. Shortly after, officials welcome the future heroes of the lands and tell them that everyone will be given a chance, because even the nation's hero can be born a serf, like Saint Classis, who was born a commoner, or Swordmaster Dober, who was born a serf. Alan is amazed and understands that he must be of a low rank for the hero and weapon master classes. Now the conditions of the game are repeating in this place. They quickly enter the church, where Alan notices 3 statues representing the gods of that world. In the center is Maya, the god of creation, the same one who sent him a message when he was 1 year old. Then the rituals begin, and the first one to step forward is the son of the town chief, named Paramus. Upon touching the crystal, the priest sees his statistics and announces that he is a merchant. His father gets excited because trade runs in his blood, while Alan notices that every talent has a rank as well, taking the opportunity to write this down in his notebook, which he realizes only he can see. Then another boy passes, leaving in tears after discovering he has no talent. Among those appraised is Degora, the only one so far to have a skill at rank A, in addition to possessing the axe talent, and he was very excited. When the commoners finish the rituals, it is the serf's turn, and they pass through very quickly. Finally, it is the turn of Kurena, Gerda's daughter, who runs excitedly to touch the crystal. When she does, the entire place lights up, and the priests are surprised when they see the slate. Kurena asks them about the result without understanding anything, and the priest tells her she won the grand prize. Kurena's talent is Swordmaster. Everyone is surprised and excited to discover the existence of a swordmaster in their village. Gerda feels excited, although Kurena is not, as she had hoped to be a knight. For his part, Alan expected something like this, otherwise nothing could explain her exaggerated strength. Finally, it is Alan's turn. He steps forward thinking the moment has finally come for his parents to know he's a summoner, but when he touches the crystal, it goes dark. Alan wonders what the hell is happening, but suddenly everything lights up with a power exceeding Kurena's. The glare pushes him back, but he gets up quickly to see the result with his father. However, the priest tells him that Alan possesses no talent. Alan remains in shock, wondering what is happening, and upon seeing the slate, he understands that his talent is completely unreadable. He begins to complain mentally to the god of creation, wondering how on earth he can say he's a summoner now. However, his father, Rodan, grabs him by the shoulders and calmly tells his son that it is time to go home. At night, when they are together, Rodan tells him they are still proud of him even if he doesn't have a talent. While Alan thinks that despite their poverty and filth, he feels happy to be born into this family, even though everyone is actually younger than him mentally, he takes a look at his grimoire while everyone is asleep. He understands that he is the only one in hell mode in this world and that all his statistics are at rank E. He remembers that everyone appraised should be at level 1 like him, but their skill ranks were higher, which is proof of the potential for evolution based on leveling up. He wonders why he has everything so low. Although he understands that leveling up is 100 times harder, this also means it's 100 times worth the effort, so it isn't fair that his talent is unreadable. He complains once again to the god and decides he will do his best, but he also thinks about complaining to this god every night. Days go by, and as they walk together, Alan asks his mother why his father looks so serious. She answers that he arrived late last night and has been in this state since then. After a while, arriving at Kurena's house, Kurena excitedly asks Alan if he knew that being a sword master is stronger than being a knight. He pretends to be surprised even though he clearly knew. Matilda arrives with a strong drink gifted to them by the village chief. Rodan gets excited but soon returns to being serious. Observing him, Alan wonders if his father is upset that Kurena is a sword master while he has no talent, but realizes his father isn't that kind of person. However, Gerda warns his friend Rodan that if he keeps that face, the drink will make him tired. Rodan replies not to spout nonsense, but Gerda comments that he seems unhappy for them, and Rodan angrily replies that he is happy, and it brings him great joy that Kurena possesses exceptional power. Gerda asks, then what the hell do you want to cut ties with him? Rodan answers that he doesn't want to do that, but Kurena has exceptional talent, and could become a noble, and ideally she should not continue surrounding herself with starving, very poor people like them. Everyone present is surprised, and Gerda grabs him, telling him that changes nothing. For his part, Alan feels it is time to intervene and asks Kurena if she needs to stop them. Kurena gets excited, but the mothers beat them to it and give the men a beating. Alan is surprised and asks Matilda if his father and Gerda always fight. She reveals that they always have, but calms down a bit after the children were born. Before that, they fought over anything. Teresia reveals that them to four are friends since birth, and 10 years ago, when they heard about these lands, they all moved together to exploit them, so they joined forces to build their homes. While they talk, Gerda and Rodan remember the moment they built the houses together, and now that they are calmer, they toast to that. Days pass by, and one day, Gerda is told that a knight is looking for Kurena, who had just been fighting with Alan. Now, in a scene change, while in the city, everyone talks about Kurena, but Dagora, the boy from before, asks Alan what a talentless person is in this place. But Kurena intervenes to defend him, telling him that Alan is a very strong person. Dagora tries to bite him, but Gerda grabs him before he causes a disaster. Meanwhile, the village chief announces that the knights have arrived, and Xenov, the captain of the knights who is also a swordmaster, is introduced. Meeting with the village chief, Xenov demands to see Gerda Kurena quickly. Her father is a bit nervous while Kurena is excited. For his part, Alan thinks it would be sad if they took Kurena from the village now that she's a swordmaster. However, suddenly Gerda gets agitated and explains to Xenov that his daughter has never held a real sword and is only 5 years old. Therefore, what he proposes is madness. But Xenov replies that since she is a swordmaster, everything will be fine, and she must be put to the test. Otherwise, she will consider that they deceived the knights and the village chief, and tampering with the appraisal rituals is a sin punishable by death. Alan feels things have gotten strange, while Xenov orders the vice captain to get ready, as they must verify that the girl truly possesses that talent, and to do so, they must conduct a sword duel. Everyone in the village is surprised, while Gerda asks the captain to reconsider. However, Xenov tells him that if Kurena does not fight, both of them will be executed. Meanwhile, a knight stands right next to Kurena, and when she sees the sword, she asks if she can take it. He confirms this, and Kurena excitedly tells her father she will fight, which almost causes him a heart attack. Now, in a scene change, she finds herself facing the vice captain of the knights who introduces himself as Librand. The fight begins, and without wasting time, Kurena attacks Librand, surprising everyone to see the little girl capable of handling such a sword. The problem is, when Librand gets serious, he pins her to the wall with a single kick. Gerda tries to intervene, but the knights stop him, as do Alan and his father. Gerda feels frustrated because despite Kurena having great talent, she cannot compete with the true experience of the vice captain. However, Kurena gets up again and begins to release an aura from within. The vice captain gets nervous, and Kurena attacks him quickly. Now he can do nothing but defend himself. he realizes Corinna possesses an extra skill, and now with a single sword strike, the child breaks his sword. Zenov ends the fight, and Corinna thanks the vice captain with a big smile for the fight, commenting that he is very strong for an old man, even though the poor guy is only 24 years old. Zenov is surprised to see she's a real swordmaster and begins to pat the knights on the head. When Gerda picks up his daughter, she starts laughing. Zenov approaches them and tells him that he acknowledges Corinna's strength. He apologizes for his rudeness, although Gerda continues to show his displeasure. However, Zenov mentions that it is time to talk about his daughter's future, and tells him that if he wants, his friends can accompany him. Now, at the village chief's house, Alan sees that Gerda is still angry, which is very reasonable, but he wonders what is the axe boy doing in this place. His thoughts are interrupted by Zenov, who introduces himself again and tells them he is here by order of the lord of these lands, who wanted to verify that the rituals were not tampered with. He tells the village chief that the village usually bears the name of the chief, but since a sword master was born in this place, the lord of these lands now wishes to name the village Kureha. The village chief accepts without complaint, while Gerda's eyes nearly pop out of his head in amazement. For his part, Zenov reveals to them that 3 years ago, a sword master was born into a count family. However, this seems curious to Alan, and while stealing fruits, he thinks that sword masters can only be born among serfs, commoners, and barons. Zenov continues telling them that the mentioned master entered the service of the royal family, but his work was not up to standard, and upon making him repeat the ritual, it turned out he was just a normal swordsman. Because of this, they discovered that many nobles had forged talent results. For this reason, the royal family has begun to mistrust ritual results, and for this reason, he apologizes once again to Gerda for putting his daughter to the test. Gerda accepts his apology, while Zenov reveals that she will enter the academy when she turns 12, to subsequently move to serve the royal family. Meanwhile, the boy with the axe asks if he can become a knight if he goes to the academy, which nearly causes his father a heart attack, and he rushes to apologize to Zenov. Zenov asks who this boy is, and his father introduces him, telling him he is an axe user and wants to become a knight. Upon hearing this, Zenov answers that he will send a teacher to the village and hopes the boy works hard to be able to enter the academy. Then Kureha tells Alan that he should also study with her, but Dogora intervenes saying he has no talent, but Kureha orders him to be quiet because her friend Alan is very strong. While he thinks, for his part, that a 5-year-old child is insulting him and his 5-year-old friend is defending him while he is actually 40 years old. Meanwhile, Zenov notices Alan's black eyes and hair. Rodan tells him this is his son, while Gerda introduces his friend Rodan. Zenov stands up surprised and asks if he is the boar hunter. He apologizes for committing a folly, as he almost didn't greet the hero of that village properly. Rodan asks why he calls him that, and Zenov reveals that the lord of these lands is very pleased to receive the giant boar meat every winter that the village sends. He knows he risks a lot hunting them, so he congratulates him on his wonderful work and hopes he receives praise from his dear lord. Rodan accepts and shakes his hand, and after a while he says goodbye to his friends. Upon heading home, he mentions that if a serf like him can earn the recognition of others, then, despite the harshness of life, they must continue living with their heads held high and with dignity. Alan understands this. In the end, his difficulty lies in hell mode, and before returning home, he reveals to his father that he has a gift for his mother and Mosh. He asks if he shouldn't have done that, but his father starts laughing and reveals that he also did the same thing. What a pair of rascals! This concludes our episode today. To follow more episodes, please subscribe to the channel and activate the bell button to receive all new updates.
Alan finds himself excited because he finally succeeded in raising his summoning level from 2 to 3, unlocking 30 slots for summons and the strengthen skill. Moreover, he can now summon rank F creatures, and his blessings have become 1.5 times stronger, though he hasn't had the time to test them yet. While gathering with his family at night, we discover that his parents are expecting their 3rd child. Masho is eager to know if the baby is a boy or a girl, while Alan is anxious to finish the dishes quickly to start his experiments. Teresia tells Masho that, based on the strength of the kicks, it seems it will be a girl, and if so, she will choose the name. Rodin asks about the name she has in mind, but just as he is about to answer, Alan's grimoire opens with a message from Elma. Alan reads it under his breath, but his parents overhear and warn him that he cannot name his sister Elma, because it is the name of the creation god. Teresia mentions he has been acting strange that day, so to change the subject, Alan asks his father about the wound on his arm. Rodin explains he passed a trial of the gods while hunting, noting that sometimes when he leaves home, his wounds and fatigue completely vanish. Alan realizes his father has actually leveled up, but the people of this world call it a trial of the gods. His father is a veteran boar hunter, and although Alan cannot see his stats, he assumes they are very high. In his own case, while his summoning level rose, his player level remains at 1, and he will never gain experience unless he hunts monsters. Unfortunately, serfs cannot leave without permission except for hunting. Alan tells his father he wants to go hunting too, but Rodden refuses, insisting that hunting is no game and is difficult even for him. Alan leaves in silence, and later in his room, he understands that the notification from Elma was a response to his persistent complaints. Finally, his talent will no longer be unreadable. He also learns that his father received a prophecy regarding his new class. Alan sees that while his skills are rank E, his stat growth is impressive. Magic and intelligence are rank S. Speed, strength, and charisma are rank A. Feeling satisfied that his efforts are paying off, he begins his tests. The first thing he does is strengthen Dinka, surprised to see its stats increase significantly. Though this doesn't change his own shared bonuses, he summons the enhanced Dinka, which remains the same size but looks more majestic. However, his mother interrupts the test, terrified by the sight of Dinka, and kicks it into the other world. The next day, Alan discovers that the strengthen effect persists even when the summon returns to card form, meaning he should enhance as many as possible. After seeing his father off, Alan goes to hang the laundry, recalling that his previous synthesis attempts were mostly failures. However, by mixing a rank F insect with a rank F bird, he successfully summons a rank F plant. He is intrigued by the ability to summon plants, and his excitement grows when he sees their blessings increase both his magic and strength. This boost will allow him to produce more cards, as his previous pace would have taken years to level up. He summons the plant to see its special technique, and upon seeing it is a small apple, he names it Abpo. He remarks that it doesn't look fit for combat, but the apple shows its technique, fragrance. When he asks it to demonstrate, it plants itself in the ground and sprouts a small stem. Alan is disappointed, wondering if it's a joke, but realizes the garden will at least smell nice, though he grumbles that he didn't reincarnate just to be a gardener. His mother calls him for a meal, and he desperately orders Appo to return to card form, but the apple doesn't listen. When his mother arrives, she notices the sprout and comments on its lovely scent, though she doesn't remember it being there. Alan wonders about its utility beyond providing stat bonuses. Time passes, and we see him training with Gerda, who as usual defeats him, but asks in surprise if he has grown stronger. Alan checks his book and sees his swordsmanship has reached level 3, and thanks to his expansion, he has much more strength and stamina. He tells Gerda he has indeed become a bit stronger. Lee's grimoire. It dunked that Poach is the only one with an offensive technique, but he cannot test it on humans. He glances at Gerda, considering it, but decides not to be reckless. Later, at sunset, he is seen throwing stones at a tree trunk. He has done this 200,000 times. Masho tells him he is exhausted. Alan does this to see if he can level up, but receives nothing. Yet, he finds it hard to stop, never knowing which throw might trigger the level up. Masho leaves him alone near Abbo's sprouts, and Alan realizes that thanks to Abbo's technique, his mana recovers in 5 hours instead of 6. On a rainy night, the family grows worried when Rodden is late. They hear a noise and find Gilda and other villagers carrying a seriously injured Rodden inside. Gilda reveals a wild boar gored him. Rodden is very weak, and they cauterize the wound to close it. Gilda tells them he is out of danger thanks to Amura's flower. Teresia asks how they got such a precious flower, and Gilda explains the Knight Commander gave them gold coins as an apology for a previous incident, which they used to buy it. However, one of Gilda's companions blames everything on the commoners, and the others agree. Masho wakes up, and Alan takes him back to bed. Gilda stays with Rodden and advises the others to rest. Later, alone with Gilda, Alan asks if what they said was true. Gilda reveals the village chief ordered the commoners to join the hunt because boar meat is vital. Most goes to the landlord while they share the scraps. Commoners don't hunt alone because it is dangerous, but the serfs continue to hunt to sustain the people. Gilda explains the commoners joined because a hero Rodden appeared among the serfs, making the chief believe they would be safe. Rodden and Gilda opposed including amateurs, but couldn't disobey. The commoners, acting tough because they couldn't stand being trained by serfs, fled in panic during the hunt. When a boar was about to kill a commoner, Rodden intervened and took the hit. They killed the boar, but at a high cost. The next day, Rodden wakes up relieved to see his family. Meanwhile, Alan reflects on his past behavior. He was only focused on getting stronger and viewed the world like a game, ignoring the harsh reality his family faced. It was time to act. Gilda arrives with Rodden's share of the meat, promising to care for the family through winter. Rodden thanks him, but Alan interrupts, asking his father for permission to protect the family himself, vowing to do his best. Alan begins performing his father's tasks, amazing everyone with his strength. He decides it's no longer time to act like a child, since Kurina is the village's future hero. It's fine if he stands out a little. He sacrifices some magic blessing for more strength, prioritizing his family while harvesting potatoes with Gilda. Alan reflects on the fact that 60% of the harvest goes to the village chief, leaving them short for winter. The chief and his son, who was responsible for the hunting accident, visit to apologize. The son kneels for forgiveness. Alan is furious, but Rodden tells the boy to be more careful next time. Alan is stunned by the gold his father received. Teresia, however, remains angry that her husband almost died, reminding them that even people of low status have families. Later, other serfs visit, and the atmosphere improves. Later, Alan prepares a field and summons Pionta to use the provocation skill to lure ducks for hunting. The ducks would secure their winter. When the skill doesn't seem to work, an Albahalen, appears a rank sea monster that Alan was named after. The bird eats Pionta easily. Alan considers a strategic withdrawal, but decides to try and defeat it after seeing its stats. He throws a stone and attacks with a wooden sword, but the bird deflects it. He summons Pochi to use their technique, but it fails. He realizes that once he loses his summons, he loses his stat boosts, making him much weaker. The bird prepares to devour him, but he manages to stop it. This concludes our episode today. To follow more events, please subscribe to the channel and activate the bell icon to receive all updates.
Continuing the fight, Alan calls upon the Chews. They latch onto the monster's neck and begin to suck its energy. In this way, Alan manages to break free, though he ends up greatly weakened. Now that he has applied buffs, he can call the Pochis and Chews to attack, and with a blow to the head, he manages to knock it down. The Grimoire appears, announcing that he has defeated an Albaeon and obtained 100 experience points. Alan celebrates this, saying it was more satisfying than he thought. He then goes to his family to tell them of this feat, bringing the Albaeon with him, although he lies to them, saying he caught it in the sky. Everyone looks on in amazement, though Mash starts to cry. His father asks his son if he hasn't broken anything, but he says he is fine. Gelda is impressed that he captured it using only a wooden sword and stones, though he sees the dog bites Alan has and asks if it bit him. Alan replies that he isn't sure as he was very concentrated. Gelda simply believes him and tells Rodan that he will take care of bleeding the creature. At that moment, Alan sees the bump on Gelda's head, imagining that Kurena hit him, but well, details. After this, Gelda takes Alan to help him with the Albaeon. Gelda tells him that of its 60 kilos weight, once bled, you are left with 20 kilos. Only half of that is edible. However, the wings are very valuable. To Alan, Gelda sharing this seems very kind, though he also mentions that 60% of the beast will end up with the chief. This rule also applies to wild monsters, except for rank E ones like horned rabbits and the rank D Albaeon. Then we see Gelda removing the magic stone from the beast. These are kept by the chief since they are of no use to the serfs. But returning to the important matter, a child caught a beast while Rodan remains injured, so they could negotiate something with the village chief. This gives Alan an idea, and he tells Gelda. In this way, they go to the chief's house. They brought the beast before him to tell the story. This excites the chief, but they ask if they can keep the beast. The chief answers that they cannot, as the Lord of the Lands demands more and more meat. Hearing this, Alan assumes that is the reason they allow commoners to hunt. Given this, Gelda proposes giving him the feathers and the magic stone. But since that isn't enough, Gelda sorrowfully recounts the situation Rodan's family is living through. Alan also plays his part, saying he is hungry and even pretending to faint. With this, They manage to convince the chief to let them keep the beast, but Alan goes further, suggesting they keep the meat as long as they give the chief the feathers and the magic stone. Gelda follows suit, saying an albaeon isn't caught every day. The chief thinks it must be very difficult to catch them, so he gives them permission to keep the meat. With this achieved, Alan returns to the field to catch more albaeons. He uses piantas as bait and sends the chews to drain them. Then he stuns them with a stone, sends the pochis to bite, and finally hits them with the sword, managing to hunt 2 birds. Alan mentions that he hunts once every 3 days, and it is the first time he hasn't lost any invocations. The grimoire notifies him of the experience obtained, reaching 1,000 out of 1,000 and achieving level 2. Alan sees that his statistics will increase, except for his skills, but it is already an achievement for him since after 6 years, he was finally able to level up and considers finally telling them about it. Back home, he shows them what he hunted. Roden is surprised, but Alan highlights that he even did it at the same time. Roden notices something but avoids saying it. Suddenly, they hear the bells, understanding it is time to train with Kurena. Thus, we see him dodging, blocking, and taking hits. All this while, he thinks about what he will do next to endure the winter, drying the meat he hunted, and then changing the firewood. While counterattacking, he takes the opportunity to think that he should take advantage of the albaeon's presence to kill 20 and reach level 3, though he finds it difficult to do this before the end of the year. Due to this distraction, Kurena sees an opening, strikes him, and defeats him. After their combat, the girl says goodbye, promising to return another day. At night, we see Alan and his parents gathered. Our protagonist decided not to hide his secret anymore, tells them that when he was 1 year old, he received a divine oracle. His parents are astonished, just as he expected. His father asks if it is the god Ilal. Alan confirms it, quoting the words the divine being told him regarding granting him wisdom and strength. Teresia doesn't quite understand, so Alan explains that it seems he is more intelligent than others and a bit physically stronger. Additionally, he was told that his trial would be harder than that of 100 people combined. Hearing this, his parents lament, crying out for mercy to the god. Rodan, for his part, asks if he passed the first stage today, as he noticed the scar on his face disappeared. Alan is surprised, he noticed, to which his father tells him that he also passed his own trial. His mother asks about the result of his ritual. Alan answers that he received an oracle from the god of creation 2 months ago about it, and that his characteristics were determined as weak because his slow evolution was taken into account. Furthermore, the reason no gift appeared is that his is a completely new one. His father seems intrigued to know more. However, Alan replies that he doesn't know yet, though it is a lie. He can only apologize to his father for lying, but he cannot risk people labeling him a dangerous person if they see him summoning creatures. Then his mother approaches to hug him, very worried, as she never knew how hard he worked to pass the trial imposed by God. After all this, his father asks what he plans to do now. Alan replies that he will keep moving forward. Rodan expected this answer, so he asks him not to hesitate to ask for help if he ever needs it. But he forbids him from speaking about this with others, as they might think it is blasphemy against their God. That said, he asks permission to tell Gelda, as he hasn't stopped bragging for days because of Kurena. The protagonist sees no problem with this and agrees. Months pass. Now Alan is seen cutting albaeon meat accompanied by Gelda, who comments that he always thought he wasn't an ordinary child, but he never thought he would receive a trial from his god. After this, we see them in the city walking with a huge sack of meat. They chat for a while. Gelda asks if it's his first time shopping. Alan confirms it. Gelda mentions that since the commoners haven't been in the hunts, everything is going better. Speaking of them, Alan asks the difference between them and the commoners. Gelda explains that it is due to status and taxes, as commoners are not taxed at 60% like they are. Instead, every year they must pay 3 gold coins per adult and 1 per child. This catches our protagonist's attention, and he takes the opportunity to ask if it's possible to become a commoner. Gelda replies that it is possible by paying 10 gold coins, but it can also be granted as a reward by the Lord of the Lands. Alan does the math, totaling 50 gold coins for his family. Later, They arrive at a business and trade the meat for salt. Then they go to another fruit stall. Back home in the afternoon, our protagonist reviews what he learned regarding prices. We see them returning over the following days. Everything he learns he writes in his grimoire, discovering that 1 gold coin is worth 100 silver, and 1,000 copper are 10,000 iron. Regarding product prices, he thinks he only needs to kill 500 albayans to get his 50 gold coins. Then we see him go to another shop asking if they have a mana recovery potion. Since they don't, he asks for something that heals wounds. The seller points out some plants, so Alan draws them in his grimoire. He also asks about Miyorise flowers. The seller says he doesn't have them, and Alan couldn't afford them anyway, though he mentions he had one by chance. It was the one he sold to Gelda last month. He remembers that Gelda offered to pay 3 gold coins instead of 5 to save his friend. Since he hadn't sold it in days, he ended up selling it, losing 2 coins. Knowing now what Gelda did for his father, Alan is moved and gives the seller Albayan meat, saying that thanks to him, his father was saved, and he will bring more meat another day. When he leaves the shop, he sees a weapon that costs 50 silver coins. At that moment, the blacksmith's son appears accompanied by the chief's son. The former pushes him, demanding he becomes his lackey. Alan is annoyed by this. However, he is not interested in a fight that doesn't give experience. Even so, he uses his sword to scare him, challenging the axe-wielder to draw his weapon and fight. He accepts the duel, telling Paromus, the chief's son, to watch him while he returns. He immediately returns with a shovel. The axe-wielder fights well, but he isn't at Kurena's level, and with one move, Alan disarms him. Before leaving, he tells Dagora that he will come to buy from him and leaves him angry. In the afternoon, the father takes off his bandages, boasting that he no longer has anything. Teresia asks him to be careful so he doesn't get hurt again. Alan enjoys this family moment watching everyone talk. The next day, he is at Kurena's house training with Dagora, while the dangerous girl practices with her younger brother, and Alan sees how she holds back with him. Dagora tries to attack Alan by surprise. Alan manages to dodge, and Dagora ends up hitting the ground. After training, everyone returns home. At night, Alan and his mother look after his siblings. At that moment, his father Roden and Gelda arrive. Both look worried. Inside the house, they explain what happened. The Lord of the Lands has summoned them and decided to increase the hunt quota to 15 boars. This means that now the serfs must also participate. Teresia opposes the decision. However, Roden clarifies that these are orders from the Lord of the Lands. Gelda adds something even more worrying. If they don't meet the quota, they will recruit new serfs. Alan understands the problem well. With more serfs, there will be less land for each family, and some could lose it if they don't fulfill the hunt. Additionally, Gelda warns that next year the quota will rise to 20 boars. Teresia considers this absurd and too dangerous, but Rodan insists that the Lord of the Lands doesn't care about their opinion. Alan agrees. He says that even if they meet the quota, the chief could increase it again. That would only worsen the situation. When Gelda criticizes the commoners for being useless, Alan accepts it, but claims they can make them useful. He trusts in the wisdom granted to him by the God of creation and asks to be allowed to take charge. Days later, Alan arrives accompanied by the commoners and the other serfs, ready to act. Alan is only here to watch today, not fight. Alan agrees, even though he's secretly disappointed because he was hoping to level up. Still, Raiden doesn't change his mind, saying the main goal is to properly train the newbies so nothing goes wrong like last time. Speaking of last time, the boy who got Raiden hurt comes over to apologize again and tells him not to risk his life protecting him. Arden calmly replies that all he has to do is focus on his role, and if everyone does their job right, nothing bad will happen. Soon, the hunting group heads into the forest, and for Alan, it's his first time outside the village walls. Naturally, he's super excited. Once they arrive, Goethe explains the plan. A few newbies act as bait to lure out a wild boar. When the boar charges in, Goethe's team stops it, and Roden's group rushes from the sides, stabbing it repeatedly. This method has worked for 10 years, but not so well with scared beginners. That's where Alan's idea comes in. Instead of putting the newbies in danger, they stay off to the side. When the boar is nearly defeated, Alan signals them to rush in and land a few hits. Since you only need to deal a little damage to earn experience in this world, the plan works perfectly. The boar falls, and boom, the newbies feel power surge through their bodies. They've leveled up. Alan is thrilled, but also slightly annoyed, because he didn't get any XP himself. The next day, Alan hears that one man has stopped hunting and started butchering meat instead, since his wife is pregnant, and he doesn't want to take risks. Alan immediately sees an opportunity. He brings the man to his house and shows him all the birds he's caught. The man is shocked a kid managed to capture so many. Alan admits he can't butcher them alone and offers a deal 2 packs of meat for every bird prepared. The man happily agrees, though he asks if Alan is sure about paying that much. Alan smiles and says it's fine. After all, these birds aren't for food. He caught them to sell and earn the 50 gold coins needed to raise his family's status. Later, the hunting group heads out again, now with even more newbies. The goal is to eventually form 2 full teams and double the number of boars they catch, just like the Baron wants. Alan does wonder why the Baron is so obsessed with more boars when there's no food shortage. Before he can think too hard, another boar attacks. The same plan is used to control the boar, then let the newbies land finishing hits. They all level up again. But this time, Alan gets smart. He sends one of his summoned grasshoppers toward the boar, letting it get crushed. Since his summon technically took part in the fight, Alan gets the XP too, and reaches level 3, though he feels a little bad for sacrificing it. 3 months later, Alan and the others are invited to the chief's mansion for a New Year celebration. On the way home, Krina is thrilled about all the candy they got. Back at home, their families throw their own party. Rodden proudly praises Alan for his strategy, saying it made training newbies safe and effective, and next year's quota of 20 BS should be easy. Then Gerda notices a bottle behind Alan. Alan explains the chief personally gifted him some liquor. His condition beat him in a game. Desperate for a drink, they agree immediately. When they ask what game, Alan casually says arm wrestling. Before starting, Alan adds one more rule. If he wins, they have to let him fight in future hunts. Raiden doesn't like it, but he's sure he'll win anyway. First up is Gerda, who confidently believes there's no way a 7-year-old can beat him. Big mistake. Alan secretly stacks every strength buff he has through his summons. The match starts, and to everyone's shock, Alan slowly overpowers Gerda and slams his hand down. Gerda is speechless. Redden isn't shocked after everything Alan's done lately. He kind of expected it, but he's still confident the kid won't beat him too. After a short break, Raiden locks arms with Alan. Just like before, Alan matches his strength at first. Alan ends up getting pushed back and losing the arm wrestling match. Keeping his promise, Alan hands over the liquor, confidently declares that one day he'll be strong enough to beat his dad. Later that year, Alan finally levels up his summoning skill again and unlocks a whole set of E-rank summons. He's excited, but knows he'll need to experiment to see what each one can do. Since E-rank creatures should give stronger buffs than the weaker ones, Alan is sure he can now beat Roden in arm wrestling. But before running off to challenge him, he notices something new in his grimoire, a feature called storage. Curious, music, Alan taps it and sees a black square on the page. He tosses a rock inside and never hears it hit the bottom. When he reaches in, a strange mental image shows him exactly where the rock is. He starts throwing in more things and realizes something insane. As long as it fits through the book, the space can hold unlimited items. Basically, he just unlocked infinite inventory. Alan immediately knows this is way too overpowered to be random skills. This broken usually exists for a reason, which means he's definitely going to need it soon. Still, storage can wait. It's time to test his new summons. He tries summoning one. Nothing happens. Turns out E-rank monsters need E-rank magic stones to appear. Luckily, Alan already has some from killing rabbit monsters earlier. He grabs them, tries again, and still nothing. That's when he gets an idea. He throws the stones into the storage space, and boom! Out comes a giant, beautiful butterfly, much bigger than expected. Before his bug-hating mom sees it, Alan hides it and heads to the fields where he summons a terrifying saber-toothed tiger. He attempts to fuse the butterfly and tiger, but it only works after adding more magic stones, showing he'll need a lot of them going forward. At dinner, Raiden tells him the village wiped out most rabbit monsters years ago because they were dangerous. Worried about running out of stones, Alan asks Palomas the next day and learns low-rank magic stones are basically useless and often scattered on the ground. So Alan starts scavenging and quickly collects enough to unlock all his new summons. He realizes his ability lets him cover every battle row alone with endless beasts at his command. He's on his way to becoming unstoppable.
As soon as they arrived at the noble's residence, they were received with a direct question. What did they want this time? They explained that according to the new decision, the Baron would begin visiting the region every month. The master of the house was surprised by the news. Then they added that in order to meet the requirements of the visit, it would be necessary to slaughter around 20 boars. He then wanted to know why they specifically needed Alan. The noble decided to clarify the situation. He said they needed someone capable of acting as the Baron's guide during his stay. They questioned why his own son could not take on that role. The man replied that Paloma was not suitable for the task. Alan understood immediately. Deep down he knew that it was true. He agreed without resistance. The noble explained that he expected Alan to help demonstrate hospitality, beginning with a dinner before the hunt. Alan realized that the intention was to entertain him and please him, perhaps even win him over with small courtesies. Even so, he made it clear that he would not be easy to manipulate. The noble had heard comments that Alan's ideas had contributed to the success of the hunts the previous year. He was confident that the boy would be able to handle that responsibility. In Alan's thoughts, however, he cared little about the Baron. The reality was that as a serf, he did not have many options to leave the village. If he continued merely hunting boars and albatrosses, it would take at least 10 years to reach the status of commoner. The boy's father explained that if he refused, there would be no problem. Alan remembered something important. The Baron had the authority to grant the title of commoner. That could be his chance to rise in the social hierarchy. After reflecting, he decided to accept the role of guide. On the day of the Baron's arrival, the city was restless. Nobles made a point of flattering him. His daughter Cecile was also present. The Baron thanked de Bouquet for the work carried out over more than 15 years to establish Krina village. Ever since the land reclamation decree, he said that throughout the entire Grenell Thief, there was no greater example of success. Apologized for the confusion involving the boar meat. He knew that the extra request was troublesome, but he could not refuse a direct order from the king. The host was shocked to learn that the request came from His Majesty himself. Irritated, he blamed Viscount Camel for having mentioned the hunts before the king. The butler advised him to calm down and taste the meal. Upon trying the dish, he was surprised by the flavor and asked what kind of meat it was. Not knowing how to respond, the host remained silent until Alan asked for permission to speak. He explained that it was a dish from Albahan, prepared with meat slaughtered the previous day. They had used breast, thigh, and liver seasoned with fresh herbs. The Baron asked whether the boy was the host's son. He replied that he was not, that Alan was a separate case. Someone at the table recalled that he was Rodin's son, the hunter. Alan thanked them for recognizing his face and informed them that he would be the guide on that occasion. The Baron was impressed by his manners and asked whether his father had been a knight. The host explained that he came from a family of serfs. Cecil showed irritation and questioned why they had allowed a serf to be present in the house. Her father immediately reprimanded her, asking her not to treat anyone that way. Even so, she continued to stare at Alan with displeasure. The Baron called the boy and asked whether he was prepared to present the details of the following day's hunt. Alan promptly agreed. The man explained that if they did not reach the mark of 20 BO, his knights would take the front line. Alan realized that he did not fully trust the serfs. Seal, on the other hand, became excited at the idea of seeing knights slaughtering boars. Alan apologized, but stated that 20 BO were a small number for them. Everyone was surprised to hear that coming from a child. He assured them that they would meet the target and that their performance would speak for itself. Before departing, the Baron asked Zeng to take care of his son and keep everyone safe. Zenov accepted without hesitation. At the camp, Alan indicated the hunting location and suggested that they climb the tower to observe the area. Cecil was impressed by the view. He explained that that was the forest where they faced the boars. Soon after, they were informed that the hunters had arrived. Alan commented that the armor being used had been produced from scraps of hide, bones, and tusks from previous hunts and asked that they convey thanks for the authorization on behalf of his father, Roden. He explained that the strategy consisted of attracting the boars into the hunting zone. Speed was essential, which was why they used light equipment. He asked for patience as it might take some time before the animals appeared. The Baron was impressed and remarked that he would send a tutor the following spring to help Alan study for the academy entrance examination. The boy understood, but he knew that in the reality of Krina, studying was something distant. Suddenly, a man appeared running, chased by a boar. He and his group raised their shields to protect themselves. Then they used spears to wound the creature, and Roden appeared to deliver the final blow. Everyone was impressed by the group's coordination. Even without great individual strength, they worked together and considered themselves worthy of being called warriors. Soon after, 2 boars appeared. Some suggested calling the guards, but Alan asked them to wait. He explained that the hunters were trained for that type of situation. In his thoughts, he believed that every creature lured in should be killed. Letting one escape was wasteful. However, in the past 10 years, he and his father had not managed to eliminate all the animals, mainly due to the lack of proper armor. 60% of the meat was collected as tax, and the remainder had to be exchanged for basic items. The spears were the only equipment they could improve. Even so, by mastering efficient strategies, they were gradually able to enhance their resources. After observing the difficulty of the confrontation, someone commented that 17 BO were still missing. Alan corrected them. Only 10 remained. 7 had already been slaughtered at the end of the previous year. He believed they would reach the target before the following month. The Baron was impressed and concluded that his knights would not be necessary. Alan gave thanks, imagining that his father would be pleased. Then he made 2 requests. The first was authorization to construct to shield walls. The Baron asked whether that was for the next hunt or already in preparation for the following year. He then asked if Alan needed anything else as his second request. The boy asked for permission to acquire goods that were not available in the village, especially alcoholic beverages. He explained that he wished to trade them and allow their distribution among the servants. The man questioned the reason. Alan clarified that with the increase in the number of boars being slaughtered, there was a real concern that the abundance of meat might reduce the value of the village products. Exchanging part of the meat for imported drinks would help prevent a possible collapse in the local market. Furthermore, he emphasized that the hunters risked their own lives to be effective. The man understood the drink would help keep morale high. He stated that he would consider the request favorably. Alan expressed his gratitude. Before concluding, the Baron remarked that they had been fortunate and advised them not to let it go to their heads. The scene shifts to everyone gathered before the man. He praises the group's hunting skills and states that great achievements deserve rewards. Otherwise, he would not be a good Baron. Then he announces that he will grant them the social position of commoner. In Alan's mind, excitement rises immediately. Now, he will be able to hunt beyond the boundaries of the estate. He had dreamed of that moment countless times over the past years. His first destination would be the White Dragon Mountains, where he intended to hunt dragons. The Baron adds that all participants in the hunts over more than 10 years will also receive the same status. He asks them to identify those who have already worked for a decade. Afterward, he decides to return to the residence so that he may head back to the city and rest. He further explains that His Majesty wishes to promote the village of Krina as an example to the rest of the kingdom. For that reason, he asked how the boar hunts had begun. The Baron observes that it is a delicate matter and asks whether Roden can recount what happened. It all began in the spring. 13 years earlier, around 100 serfs from neighboring villages moved to the region to assist in developing the lands under the reclamation decree. After 6 months of hard labor, they had cleared a large portion of the forest. Autumn was approaching when disaster struck. A massive boar suddenly appeared and attacked, devouring most of the wheat and potatoes reserved for winter. Many of those serfs had gone to the frontier after suffering hunger in their former villages. Returning was not an option. It was then that Roden took the initiative. He proposed that they hunt the boars to obtain meat. At that time, they did not possess the weapons, armor, or knowledge they have now. Even so, all the men united using pickaxes and hoes as improvised weapons and managed to bring down a single boar. The Baron is impressed by the account and states that they should be proud, for they united to accomplish an extremely difficult task. However, he reminds them that they lost a friend in the process. After defeating the boar, they overcame a trial of the gods and their wounds were healed. Yet their companion was not as fortunate. He has told Roden many times that he should not blame himself, but he does not listen. At that moment, Alain, his father, predicted those coming. He had already lost friends in that way. The Baron does not wish for such a painful memory to be revived, but he wants Roden to understand something. Despite the losses, the village would never have prospered without his prudent decisions. He wishes to honor everyone's bravery with new rewards. Roden then asks whether his son could work in the Baron's household. The man consults the butler about the existence of a vacancy, implies that there is one. The request is then accepted. Alan, however, does not wish to work there because he needs to take care of his summons and feels that he must find a way out of that situation. Even so, seeing his father so happy, he keeps his thoughts to himself. Upon arriving home, he bids farewell to everyone. He decides to have one last sparring match with his friend, and this time he wins. He tells her that they will continue seeing each other often. His father asks him to work with dedication, for that is the first great opportunity of his life, and says that he places many expectations upon him.
Later, we see the protagonist carrying Cecil so she can pick a fruit from a tree. Since Alan is tired of her hand not reaching, he suggests she stand on his shoulders. Cecil thinks this is a good idea, but warns him that she might kick him and fall. This is how they manage to get the fruit. However, it turns out Cecil doesn't like them because tree fruits are very sour. Regardless, Cecil sends Alan to the market to get a fruit to cleanse her palate. As Alan is about to leave, a shadow covers him, and he sees a ship above the house. It is similar to tools powered by magic stones, but Alan is impressed by its size. The next day, Alan wakes up and feels something coming from a plant. Upon approaching, he checks his stats and sees one is rank F and another is rank E. This excites him for some reason, but first, he goes to breakfast. At the dining room, we meet the head of service named Raquel. He asks Alan if he is getting along well with Lady Cecil. Alan replies more or less, to which Raquel says with pity that such is the life of a servant, though if he were a page, he wouldn't be demanded of so much. Alan asks the difference between the two. Higher-ranking servants include the butler, housekeeper, head chef, or lady's maid. Lower-ranking ones are the coachman, cook, gardener, and servant. All of them are considered part of the family, but pages only serve occasionally, so they aren't viewed as family members. With this, Alan understands why his father cried with joy. The Baron had made him part of his family. He also reflects on how little the Baron's family eats. The Baron's wife mentions how quickly Alan learned to be a servant. Alan replies that he owes it all to the teachings of his superiors. She mentions that his manners go beyond those of a serf. The Baron agrees, though he also knows Alan has no talent. Hearing this, Cecil laughs, saying she is a mage. Alan recognizes that it is a very good 2-star talent. Cecil adds that her older brother Mihai is a swordsman, but her father scolds her for bragging. However, her brother Thomas is the only child without a talent. Regardless, the Baron encourages him by saying he will attend the Academy for Nobles in the royal capital. Thomas wants to go to the academic city like Mihai, but only people with talent go there. Even the Baron doesn't have one. That's why he went to the Academy for Nobles, where he met Thomas's mother, so they asked Thomas not to let it affect him. Later, during his free time, Alan goes out and sees how different the city is from the village. He also sees an adventurer's guild. When he enters, he asks if he can join, but he must be 12 years old and he is only 8. Alan doesn't plan on giving up on his dream, so he looks for more information about the guild, such as the rank of each monster and their price. An adventurer approaches him, warning him that the place isn't a playground. Alan apologizes and is about to leave, but first asks why some rewards don't have a marked appearance location. The man explains that those monsters can be found almost anywhere. Having said that, he orders him to go home. Before leaving, Alan asks one more question. How are monster ranks assigned? The man explains that ranks increase the further they are from the city, so the highest ranks live near the White Dragon Mountains. Alan smiles victoriously, seeing the man is telling him everything. He points to different beasts and asks why no one has accepted those missions yet. The man explains it's due to how strong and dangerous they are, recommending they be left to the knights. Among the missions, Alan sees one about hunting a white dragon. Even though he tries to ask, the guy orders him to leave once and for all. But our protagonist asks one last question. The man explains it's because of its power, but there are huge mithril deposits inside the White Dragon Mountains, and some people are desperate to mine it, which is why the reward has been increasing for decades. Knowing this, Alan calculates that the mithril must be worth more than 1,000 gold coins. The man's party members appear. To avoid bothering him further, Alan says goodbye and leaves the guild, exclaiming he is ready for his next objective. One morning on his day off, he runs toward the city entrance. A guard stops him, asking for his travel permit. Alan shows it, surprising the guard, who apologizes upon noticing it's from the Granville family. Alan pays it no mind, and as soon as the gate opens, runs toward the forest. With his current knowledge, he prepares to search the surroundings. He summons several Hawkins and sends them to locate monsters. Next, he summons Tama to test something. Hawkins returns, signaling he found one. Alan follows immediately, but worries after running for several minutes. He realizes he made a mistake by not specifying the distance, something he plans to keep in mind later. After running for a while, he encounters a group of goblins. He quickly devises a plan, summons several Tamas, and ambushes them. He orders them to attack with Claw, and manages to take down several, but it's not enough, so he summons Papillon, which uses sleep powder. With the goblins unconscious, Alan throws stones at them until they are finished. He extracts the magic stones and asks Hawkins to find more. They continue fighting all day until nightfall. When finished, he tallies his farm, a total of 16,000 experience points, which levels him up twice. He also learned that Papillon has an 80% success rate for inducing sleep in goblins, and that rank D magic stones cannot be used to summon rank E creatures or vice versa. Now that he knows this, he wants to keep farming, but the birds don't move because they aren't nocturnal. Alan planned to use them to return to the city, so now he is lost. On another day, he buys iron balls to have something more powerful than a rock. After more hunting, he reaches level 12. His strategy is to farm XP with easy monsters while improving his gear. Upon returning home, he is surprised by the butler and taken to speak with the Baron. The Baron highlights his performance as a servant over the last 2 months, but wants to know what he's been doing on his days off. Alan understands the concern and tells the truth. He's been hunting monsters because hunter's blood runs through his veins. Though he said the last part without thinking, it makes him feel good. The Baron understands it's his instinct, but Sebas asks what he does with the horned rabbits he hunts. They assume Alan only hunts low-rank monsters and want to stop him if he's been selling his permit, but Alan had simply been throwing them away. Sebas tells him the Granville estate will buy the rabbit meat for 1 silver coin per pack. This is much better for Alan, and he thanks them. On another day, Alan plans to hunt 100 goblins, but the Hawkins arrive very agitated. Alan runs to see what's happening and finds the group of adventurers from the guild fighting goblins, with the man from before wounded. He helps them with his iron bullets. Alan doesn't want them to see his summons, so he fights with his knife. At level 12, his attack and agility are over 300, so he can defeat rank D monsters without help. After finishing the last goblin, the white-haired girl runs to check on Raven. He is badly wounded. She asks the priestess to heal him, but she can't because she's out of MP. Not knowing what to do, she begs him to hold on. Alan approaches, offering to treat the wound with a healing herb. Alan takes a leaf of life from his grimoire capable of restoring HP. Keeping calm, he places the herb on Raven's abdomen. It begins to glow, and the next second the wound closes completely, causing Raven to wake up. The girls ask if he's okay, which he confirms. Alan then notices a wound on Rita and uses another leaf. The girls doubt if it's right for him to use something so valuable on them, but Alan reassures them. At that moment, Raven recognizes him as the boy from the guild and thanks him for saving him. Alan tells him not to worry and is about to leave. However, Raven stops him, asking to repay him. Alan doesn't want a reward since he needs to farm to reach his goal, so he only asks them not to tell anyone about him. They promise to keep his secret but tell him if he needs anything else, not to hesitate to ask. Hearing this, Alan asks them to collect about 100 rank E magic stones for him. Raven is confused but accepts, promising to have them ready by next week. They say their goodbyes. As he walks, Alan thinks about what he did. Unlike the flower used on his father, which took a month for recovery, Raven healed instantly with the Leaf of Life. This tells him the flower he gave his father recovers HP based on a percentage, while the Leaf of Life is a fixed HP healing item. Resting in a tree, he checks the experience he gained. He also remembers what happened with Hawkins. He summons him immediately and demands to know why he ignored orders and led him further away than indicated. He asks if it was because he worried about those adventurers. Hawkins nods in affirmation. Alan is amazed that the summon can prioritize its own feelings over orders, recognizing that Elmia created incredible creatures. Seeing Hawkins look depressed, Alan clarifies that he didn't mean to make him feel bad, promising to be more careful with his instructions in the future. That night, we see our protagonist carrying Cecil, who is trying to sneakily take a jar of jam. Alan asks why, and she reveals she wants to bake cookies to welcome her older brother, Mihai. Alan doesn't quite understand, but in a moment of distraction, he loses his balance and both fall to the ground, making noise. People hear them, but they disguise the sound by meowing, so they aren't discovered. We see the Baron and his children having dinner, and suddenly they are shocked that the taste of the meat is very delicious. When the Baron asks about the type of meat, Cecil tells her father that this is the meat of the wild rabbits that Alan hunted from the forest. He becomes very happy and says that this is expected from the son of the great hunter Rodin. After that, the Baron tells Alan that his village was able to hunt 20 pigs and cover the kingdom's demands. Alan is very happy that his father continues to hunt, even though he is not there. However, we see the Baron's son very upset, saying, "Does this mean we won't eat pork again?" He discovers that the pigs hunted in his village are always sent to the royal capital and do not reach the Baron's palace. He wonders, what does the royal capital need all this number for? He says that the king requested to increase the hunting of wild pigs, yet nothing reaches the Baron's palace. The Baron's wife, Grenville, asks him, "If we hold a party now, where will we get the pork from?" He tells her that they don't have to eat pork at every party. They can eat anything else. After that, we see the Baron's son asking Alan if he can hunt a white deer next time, but Cecil interrupts her brother and says that if he wants to ask any question, it must go through her first. Alan is surprised and thinks, is she my business manager or what? But Thomas's mother tells him it's not the time for this question. Alan interrupts her and promises Thomas that he will hunt the white deer today. Of course, they are very happy that Alan agrees. Alan says that the white deer's rank will surely be rank S, like the wild pigs they hunt. He then goes out to the forest, and his eagle comes to him, telling him that it found the white deer. He immediately runs with it to find the location, and is surprised to find that the deer has just finished off a group of goblins. He notes that its size from up close is very large, contrary to what he expected. Then, Alan starts executing the plan to hunt the white deer. He summons the frogs and has them use a skill called provocation. They keep jumping in front of the deer like idiots until they make it extremely angry. The deer immediately attacks them, but Alan orders them to disappear quickly, so it fails to hit them. They repeat this provocation move many times until they manage to lead it to the trap. As soon as it decides to attack them, it falls into the trap Alan made. Then, he pulls out his dagger and finishes it off. When he returns to the city, the guards immediately gather, thinking that the white deer decided to attack the city. Alan is the one dragging the monster to the city and keeps calling for Thomas, to the point that the guards think the monster is talking. Then, Alan emerges from under the deer and tells them, "You idiots, I'm the one talking. Please come help me because this deer weighs almost a ton." He tells them that he hunted this white deer for Thomas's sake. The Baron arrives and can't believe that Alan actually managed to hunt it. Thomas is very happy with the white deer and tells his mother that they will finally have special meat to serve at the New Year's party. The Baron talks with his assistant, unable to believe that Alan hunted the white deer alone, as it is known to be a powerful rank C monster. He wonders how a child without talent could do this alone, and says they must investigate Alan's talent thoroughly, even if they have to reevaluate his talent from scratch. Later, Alan goes to the Baron's assistant's office, who tells him that they decided to give him 2 jobs so far. The first is hunting monsters because he has great efficiency, and the second is protecting the city from any monster attacks. Alan can't believe himself because he will now be able to go out to the forest and hunt monsters, and this will be an official job from the Baron. The assistant tells him that he won't do this for free and pulls out a pouch of dinars to give him. His salary will be 100 silver pieces, which is double the salary he receives inside the Baron's palace. Alan feels that they want to trick him, so that instead of paying him for every monster he hunts, they decided to give him a fixed salary. He thinks that the white deer he hunted costs more than 100 silver pieces alone, and that they seem to want to rip him off. The assistant sees him distracted and asks if he doesn't like the money. Alan says, on the contrary, the money is very good and great. He thinks he will exploit having an official job from the Baron to go out to the forest, hunt monsters, and sell their meat for his own account. Alan tells the assistant that he agrees to the title of hunter and is ready to go hunting every day. The assistant shocks him by saying he won't go out every day and reminds him of his basic job, which is being the servant of Princess Cecil. He tells him he will go out hunting only once a week. Alan feels his ambitions shattering and that he won't be able to make much money from hunting. After that, we see Alan with Cecil watching the ship flying in the sky. Alan starts thinking and wondering how it flies, concluding it must use magic stones. As soon as the ship lands, Cecil runs to it and welcomes her older brother who has just arrived. We learn that his name is Mihai. Cecil argues with him because he promised to come last summer but didn't. Then Alan arrives and welcomes him, offering to carry his bag. Mihai learns that Alan is Cecil's new servant. Mihai looks at Alan as a small, insignificant kid and wonders why they brought a servant of this size. He says that since he was appointed as their servant at this age, he must have a very special skill. Alan realizes that Mihai is a very smart personality who understands people. Then Mihai brings out a gift for his sister from the capital, a butterfly-shaped gift, and she is very happy with it. When Alan sees how much Cecil cares for and loves Mihai, he remembers his own siblings and hopes they are well. Later, we see Alan chasing a giant Circassian rooster, hitting it with a stone on the head to finish it. When he returns to the palace, the cook is shocked that he caught the rooster he was looking for, as well as the rare giant frog. The head of servants tells him to hurry and watch the strong duel happening between Mihai and the head of the guards to evaluate Mihai's level after returning from the academy. Alan is amazed by the fight. The head of the guards is also impressed by Mihai's abilities, noting that his level has risen from last year. Cecil sees Alan watching and goes to greet him. When Mihai sees that Alan hunted the rooster and the rare frog, he asks to challenge Alan to a duel to see his level. Alan agrees and takes the sword of the head of the guards. Amazed by the sword because it is made of rare mithril, Alan opens his stats and notices his level has risen significantly recently after hunting many monsters. He prepares for the duel, telling himself to be careful not to hurt the Baron's son. When the fight starts, he is surprised that Mihai blocks his strike easily. Mihai continues to attack with fast strikes, and Alan is surprised by his speed. Alan tries to surprise him with a quick move, but Mihai blocks it with one hand. The duel continues intensely. Mihai's mother is worried, but the head of the guards reassures her, saying Mihai trained for a year at the academy, and there is no chance he would lose to an amateur like Alan. Indeed, Mihai gives Alan a powerful strike that knocks the sword out of his hand and wins. Mihai thanks Alan, saying his level is good. Cecil runs to praise her brother and tells Alan his level was good, so she won't call him weak this time. Thomas tells them that during training, he went down into a magic dungeon and fought many monsters. Alan hears this and wishes to go down into one. Mihai says his training at the academy was harsh, which is why his level rose. Alan hopes to be as strong as him one day. He learns that Mihai is leaving for a long time and asks him for another challenge when he returns. Mihai agrees and asks him to take care of his siblings. Alan wishes he could go to the forest every day to raise his level, but he is tied to Cecil. They bid farewell to Mihai as he returns to the academy, where Karina is. Alan hopes to see her soon and enter one of the magic dungeons. Later, a nobleman named Carnell visits Baron Grenville. Carnell has great power, so the head of servants warns Alan to be careful with the food he serves him because he rules many territories. Alan serves the dish, and when Carnell tries the meat, He asks what kind it is. The Baron says it is wild pig meat. Alan looks slyly because he knows it is the wild rabbit meat he hunted. Carnell eats like a fool, saying the capital hunts large quantities of pigs because the taste is so good. We learn that Carnell is the reason the capital takes all the pork. The head of servants provides information about the White Dragon Mountains, saying the dragon's nest is there and rare mithril stones are found there. But the mountains are surrounded by traps, so knights cannot invade. This causes an economic stagnation in the city due to the lack of mithril. Carnell tells Grenville he came for another reason. His daughter underwent a talent evaluation test. Alan thinks it's time for talent evaluations again and hopes his brother Mash has a talent. The shock is when Carnell says his daughter turned out to have no talent, and he laughs like an idiot, envying Grenville because his 3 children have talents. Grenville gets angry and tells him to stop envying them. Alan is surprised that they envy each other's children and wonders what the poor should do. Later, Alan sits with the adventurers he saved before and tells them he's thinking of hunting far from the city. They tell him it's very dangerous, and he shouldn't underestimate the monsters. One of the adventurers takes him to buy equipment, and they find a cloak with good abilities. Alan goes out to the forest, happy with his stats. His eagle finds a rank C monster, a giant pig, but it's sleeping. Alan summons tigers to attack it, and though it resists, they finish it off. He gets 1,500 points and extracts a rank C magic stone. He starts feeling arrogant but remembers his loss to Mihai and tells himself he needs to work 100 times harder. The eagle finds another rank C monster, an armored ant. Alan summons tigers, but their claws don't affect its solid body. The ant finishes off the tigers. Alan changes the plan, summoning butterflies that release sleeping powder. They put the ant to sleep and flip it on its belly. Alan tries to stab it, but even with an attack level of 438, he can't pierce it. The ant wakes up, and he stabs it repeatedly until it dies, gaining 3,000 points. He realizes physical attacks won't work well on such monsters and decides to use spells since his intelligence stat is high. He goes with Cecil to a sorcerer and asks him to check if he can use spells. Cecil calls him a fool, saying only those with talent can use them. The sorcerer uses a magic crystal, but it gives no signal when Alan touches it, proving he has no talent. Alan gets very angry, feeling like a failure, wondering what he will do with his high intelligence stat. Thus ends our summary for now, but the story of the monster summoner Alan is not over yet. If you're excited for the rest, don't forget to support us with a like and subscription to receive the new episodes. Picking up our story, we see the Baron eating when suddenly, the town's alarm bells start ringing. Sensing a huge threat, the head butler rushes in and tells him a giant monster is at the town's borders and is about to attack. When the Baron asks how he knows, the butler says the gate guards reported it. The Baron immediately asks for the captain of the guard, but it turns out he's out on a mission and won't be back for 2 hours. The Baron then orders the guild to evacuate the townspeople and send adventurers to defend the town. When Alan hears this, he asks the Baron for permission to join the fight and protect the town. Cecile jumps in saying, "You're my servant. You can't do anything without my permission." But Alan basically tells her to sit this one out, reminding her that he now officially holds the Beast Hunter title, giving him the right to help the adventurers. We then see the terrified townspeople running for their lives as Alan sprints toward the monster. Turns out, this monster is called the Murder Ogre. Alan had seen its bounty at the Adventurers Guild before and knows it's a B-rank monster that many adventurers have failed to hunt. The guards and adventurers are rushing people inside to safety when a guy runs up panicking, saying his wife and kids are stuck in a wagon outside. Alan looks over and sees this terrifying, massive ogre just munching on the wagon's horse. The guy's wife and daughter are cowering inside, terrified. The ogre starts moving toward them to eat them, but Alan steps in, pulls out his iron ball, and chucks it right at the monster. Bam! The ogre's eye literally starts bleeding. The chase Alan keeps taunting the ogre to draw its aggro. A guard yells at him, "What are you doing, kid? Get inside!" But Alan ignores him and throws another iron ball. This time, the ogre blocks it with its hand. Alan tells the guards he's going to lure the ogre to the White Dragon Mountains. In a flash, the ogre lunges at him, but Alan dodges at the last second and makes a run for it. While running, Alan checks his stats and realizes he's drained all his mana boosting his stats, meaning he can't summon any beasts to help him right now. The ogre tries to smash him while running, but Alan narrowly dodges again. Lying on the ground, Alan frantically thinks, what do I do with this annoying ogre that keeps grinning at me? Suddenly, he gets a notification. He checks his stats again and sees he's recovered a good chunk of mana. He quickly recalls some of his summoned beasts to free up slots for the ones he actually needs right now. He gets back up, making the ogre chase him again. He summons his sleep powder butterflies, but to his shock, the powder does absolutely nothing. He tries to make the butterflies use stronger sleeping doses, but the ogre is completely immune and just keeps swatting them out of the air. Alan keeps running, thinking, is this guy ever going to give up? The chase goes on until nightfall. Alan hides in the woods, and the ogre searches for him. Alan rests against a tree, wondering how he's going to defeat this thing, but he refuses to give up. He puts on the stealth cloak he bought earlier from the weapon shop. But surprise, the ogre spots him from afar. Alan's like, nope, I'm out, and bolts again with the ogre hot on his heels. The aftermath and reward. Fast forward 3 days, Alan finally makes it back to town. The gate guards spot him and rush over. Alan looks completely exhausted and just passes out. When he wakes up, Cecile is right there. She's secretly super happy to see him awake, but yells at him anyway, saying she was worried about her servant. The Baron's assistant asks him what happened, and Alan explains that for the past 3 days, he was just constantly running away from the ogre. When he meets the Baron, he apologizes for not killing it, saying all he could do was lure it far away from town. The Baron and the guard captain tell him not to apologize. Protecting the town and its people is an adventurer's job, and luring it away was a huge help. Baron Granville decides to reward him, giving him 2 pouches of coins, one with 10 gold coins from the Baron, and another 10 gold coins from the family he saved. Alan is over the moon, thinking, with this cash, I can finally buy that expensive mithril sword I've been dreaming of. Before he leaves, the Baron warns him to be careful and not hunt too far from town. Testing summons. Later, Alan goes back to the forest to hunt and finds another iron ant. With his brand new sword, he easily chops off its legs, breaks its iron belly armor, and loots the magic stone. Then he starts experimenting. He calls out to 2 hawks flying above, telling a third one to leave for now. He pulls some fruits and veggies from his magic bag, hides one in a sack, and summons the hawks one by one to guess what's inside. The first 2 guess correctly, but when he summons the third hawk, the one he sent away earlier, it has no idea what's in the bag. He summons a brand new hawk, and it guesses correctly too. He realizes his summons can share information. To test their intelligence, he summons a bird named Bobo, which is supposed to have a higher IQ than the hawks. But when he asks Bobo what's in the sack, Bobo doesn't know. Alan figures out that summons of the same species share a hive mind network, but different species don't. He's thrilled with this new info about his summoning system, realizing he can eventually upgrade their abilities and build an unbeatable army of beasts, time skip and dragon threat. 6 months pass and Alan is now 9 years old. We see him sparring with Mihai again, but Mihai is still incredibly fast and Alan just can't keep up. Alan is thinking, man, I've defeated 2,000 C-rank monsters over the last 6 months. My level should be way higher. Why can't I match his speed and power? He gives it everything he's got, but Mihai disarms him with 1 strike and wins the duel. Captain Xeon congratulates Mihai on his progress, while Alan is literally fuming with frustration after losing again. He realizes the Academy is leveling Mihai up crazy fast, and just grinding monster hunts might not be enough. Mihai shakes Alan's hand, clearly not as arrogant as Cecile, and praises him for his improvement. Alan brushes it off, saying, what improvement? You still beat me. Mihai says he's sure Alan will make a perfect servant for his sister. Cecile chimes in, mocking Alan and telling him he needs to practice his sword skills more, which gets on Alan's nerves. Later during dinner, Mihai is shocked to hear about the ogre attack and that Alan was the one who lured it away. He asks if Alan got hurt, and Alan says he's fine. Cecile, of course, teases him about being bedridden for 3 days straight afterward. Thomas asks Mihai if he could have beaten the ogre, and Mihai admits there's no way he could solo a B-rank monster. Suddenly, a guard rushes in with terrible news. The white dragon has moved! Everyone is shocked. Alan knows the white dragon is a massive A-rank threat, with a 1,000 gold bounty. The guard explains adventurers spotted it flying towards the Carnell region. The Baron is actually relieved because that means it's far away from the White Dragon Mountains, which are full of mithril veins. He thinks they can finally mine the mithril and fix the town's broke economy. He orders Captain Zeon to scout the mines, but Zeon says they need to make sure the dragon has actually settled far away first. Mihai wants to join the scouting mission since the mountains are crawling with dangerous monsters like orcs and goblins, but Zeon refuses, saying it's too dangerous. Mihai's mom also tells him to focus on his studies, so he stays behind. Of course, our boy Alan overhears all of this. He sees this as the perfect opportunity to farm some serious XP by fighting those high-level monsters alongside the knights, which would help him finally beat Mihai. The shared vision skill. Later in the forest, Alan checks his stats. His mana is fully restored, and he decides it's time for more experiments. He notices his summoner level has hit level 5, unlocking a brand new skill called shared vision. He tests it out on one of his eagles, and boom, his eyes glow red, and he can literally see what the eagle sees. He sends the eagle high up and gets a bird's eye view of the whole forest. He's totally blown away. Not only can he see through the eagle's eyes, but he can also control its movements in any direction. He wonders how many summons he can link up with. He summons 3 eagles and uses the skill, effectively creating a multi-monitor setup in his head. Then he summons a tiger and links with it, but the mental strain is too much, and he gets a massive headache, so he cancels it immediately. He realizes the limit is 5 summons at a time, hoping to increase that cap later. Looking at his stats again, he decides to heavily invest his intelligence, INT points. He realizes he's been ignoring the INT stat of his beasts, so he boosts it and tries the shared vision again. This time, no headache. He finally understands the value of the INT stat. He starts testing this out on a bunch of different summons. To test out this new shared vision in combat, he finds a group of iron ants. Using the skill, he directly commands each beast, telling them exactly what moves to use. The beasts execute his orders perfectly. He's thrilled because his summons used to just attack randomly, but now he has full tactical control. Suddenly, he finds a weird potato on the ground. It literally plants itself into the dirt and grows into a strange item that restores 1,000 of his mana. He then summons an owl, realizing he hadn't tested night vision yet. Now he's got an eagle for the day and an owl for the night. He's successfully built an army he can fully control. He gathers all his beasts and orders them to go hunt on their own, but strictly warns them to stay away from any humans. He's walking around super happy because his army is auto-farming while he does other things. He even realizes he can use shared vision to check up on his family. He sends a bird over to his parents' place, feeling super relieved to see they're doing well while he works at the Baron's mansion. Thus ends our summary for now, but the story of the monster summoner Alan is not over yet. If you're excited for the rest, don't forget to support us with a like and subscription to receive the new episodes. We continue our story and see the Baron talking to the military commander. He asks him, "What did you accomplish in exploring the mountains during the last 6 months?" The commander replies, "Just as we expected. Because of the absence of humans, monsters have taken control of all the mines that contain the rare Egyptian stones." He adds that the monsters' numbers are large and they are almost settled there. The Baron then asks, "How long will we need to regain control of our mines again?" Commander Zainov answers, "At least 3 years." But the Baron doesn't like that time frame at all and orders him to finish the matter as soon as possible. Zainov notices that the Baron is extremely upset because he knows these mines are very important for them to regain in order to improve their economic situation. After that, the Baron asks Commander Zainov, "What's the news about Commander Karnell?" Zainov replies that Karnell tried to use those mines, but unfortunately he provoked the White Dragon. The White Dragon literally wiped out all the workers and burned them alive. While he is listening to their conversation, Al receives a notification that he has gained 15,000 points. And this is because of the sharing skill. We learn that the monsters he sent to the forest managed to kill a giant orc. Al becomes very happy and excited and says, "When I reach the age of 12, I will leave the job I'm doing right now because I want to become an adventurer. During these 2 years, I will repay Baron Grenville's kindness and try to help them eliminate the monsters." Then we see Al heading to the goblin lair, and the goblins begin gathering to attack him. With the help of the powerful monsters he has with him, he manages to eliminate a large number of them. By using the sharing skill, he is also able to determine their locations. Of course, he is trying to eliminate the largest number of goblins and destroy their settlements because they pose a huge threat to humans. He says, "The time has come to wipe them off the map completely." We see him giving orders to the giant bears he summons to attack the goblins and wipe them out. The goblins are literally terrified by the size of these giant bears that he managed to summon. When they realize there is no hope of fighting back, they decide to run away, but Al has already surrounded them completely and starts eliminating them one after another. Then the goblin chief appears, furious and angry at Al. Al sends a giant bear to finish him, and it succeeds in killing him. After destroying the goblin lair, Al gains about 48,000 experience points. Even though the experience points are huge, Al still doesn't seem satisfied. He continues searching for every goblin and orc lair so he can destroy them and grow stronger. Later, we see Mahai graduating from the academy. His sister Cecil and Al go to welcome him. As soon as Mahai sees Al, he greets him and, just like usual, the first thing he does is challenge Al to a duel. Mahai's siblings are surprised because their brother seems different, and this isn't like him. Meanwhile, Al looks at his stats and says, "Now I can summon a large number of powerful monsters, and I've raised my level appropriately. There's no reason for me to lose to Mahai this time." We learn that as soon as Mahai arrived, he asked to challenge Al without any restrictions. Al prepares to use all his strength. As the duel begins, Al attacks Mahai with incredible speed and says, "My speed has doubled compared to the last time I met Mahai." Mahai is actually surprised by Al's speed, but he still manages to block all of Al's attacks. Al becomes shocked and says, "Even though my attacks are fast, I can't land even a single hit on him." As Al continues attacking, he begins to feel exhausted and says, "Could Mahai be reading my movements and predicting them?" Suddenly, Mahai attacks him at great speed. Al barely blocks the attack and says, "My level in the sword skill is low, and that's why he's surpassing me." Then Mahai suddenly lands a powerful strike that sends the sword flying from Al's hand. Just like usual, the duel ends with Mahai's victory. Al feels extremely frustrated and sad because he failed to defeat him for the third time. Al wonders, what more should I do to finally defeat him? When he goes to greet Mahai, he is shocked because Mahai completely ignores him and walks toward his father, King Grenville, who tells him, "You worked hard during the 3 years at the academy until you graduated. You've become a strong fighter now, and I can rely on you." As usual, Cecil goes to Al and thanks him for fighting her brother Mahai, but she keeps teasing him and says, "You will never be able to beat him." She then suggests that the best solution is for her brother to give Al combat lessons. Al actually likes the idea. Thomas decides to join them in training as well. Later, Mahai goes to his siblings and tells them he wants to talk. He says, "I must leave now to fulfill the duty of nobles." Cecil and Thomas don't understand what he means. He explains that he will leave for a long time and doesn't know when he will return. They become worried and beg him to stay. Cecil notices that their father and mother look very sad because they are extremely worried about Mahai. Mahai reassures them and says, "Don't worry about me. It's just 3 years and I'll come back." Al remembers what Carnell once told Baron Grenville, that he had very talented children. At that time, the Baron was upset because he knew that once his son finished the academy, he would be summoned to participate in the war against the monsters. Later, we see Mahai preparing his bag and saying goodbye to his sister, father, and mother. When he gets into the carriage, he hugs Al and tells him, "I want you to take good care of my sister. No matter what happens, try to defend her and always keep her safe." After that, Al continues destroying more goblin lairs and manages to reach level 35. He then uses the sharing skill again and heads into the orc territory. He attacks them. When the orcs try to shoot arrows, he uses the Golden Knight ability to block their arrows. Then he summons a group of spiders to restrain the orcs guarding the gate. After capturing them, he enters the lair. Once inside, the orcs quickly gather and attack him. Al summons the giant bears again, and a fierce battle erupts. While observing the battle, he notices his experience points increasing rapidly as he kills many of them. Suddenly, he is shocked when a magic attack flies toward him, but the Golden Knights manage to block it. When he looks for the source, he finds a group of desert orc shamans responsible for the attack. 3 of them prepare to cast magic against him. Al becomes frustrated because he cannot use magic like they can, but he says, "I will never lose to them." He blocks their attacks again with the Golden Knights, but their magic is extremely powerful and begins affecting his summoned monsters. So he takes out an iron ball and throws it at one of them, smashing his head. He becomes very happy that his plan worked. He pulls out 2 more metal balls from his magic toolbox, but suddenly the remaining shamans disappear and attempt to attack from behind cover. Al finds another opportunity to throw the metal balls and attack them. Meanwhile, one of the orcs runs to the orc chief and says, "Chief, help us! We're getting completely crushed!" Soon, Al is shocked to see huge numbers of orcs heading toward him. He says, "Their numbers don't matter. I can summon any number of magical beasts." He summons a large army, and an enormous battle begins between Al's summoned beasts and the orcs. While watching the battle, the giant orc chief suddenly appears. 2 giant bears attack him, but he kills them with a single strike. Al is shocked by his immense strength. He keeps summoning more bears, but the orc chief kills them easily every time. Suddenly, one of the orc shamans launches a magical attack at Al. The Golden Knight blocks it, but this time, the knight is destroyed by the strength of the spell. Another shaman attacks, and 2 of Al's monsters try to block it, but the attack sends Al flying. He uses his healing skill to restore his HP and desperately searches for a way to defeat the powerful orc chief. Suddenly, he hears a voice saying, "Are you having trouble defeating the orcs and their chief?" Al turns around in shock and sees Commander Xenov standing beside him. He doesn't know how Xenov appeared there. Xenov says he saw the huge smoke from afar and came to check what was happening. Al apologizes and says he wanted to defeat the orcs himself. Realizing Xenov saw his summoned monsters, he quickly hides them. Xenov decides to handle the orc king himself and orders his assistant to deal with the rest. He confidently approaches the orc chief. Al becomes happy because if Xenov kills him, Al will still gain experience since he participated in the battle. The orc chief attacks Xenov immediately, but Xenov blocks the attack effortlessly and pushes him back. Al is shocked by his incredible strength. Xenov's assistant explains that Xenov is called the Demon of War because of his overwhelming power in battle. The orc chief keeps attacking Xenov, but Xenov blocks every strike easily. Meanwhile, Xenov's assistant notices the orc shamans and flies toward them at great speed. A group of orcs surrounds him, but with a single strike, he pierces through them and kills them all. One shaman fires a magical attack, but the assistant cuts the spell in half and continues fighting until he wipes them all out. Al is completely stunned by their strength. Back to the orc chief. He launches another powerful attack at Xenov, but Xenov leaps into the air and lands a strike that splits the orc chief in half. Al is shocked that Xenov defeated a rank B monster with a single strike without even using a skill. That night, Xenov speaks with Al and asks, "You're the one who eliminated the goblins, aren't you?" Al can't deny it. Xenov explains that recently they found many goblin corpses outside the city and didn't know who was killing them. They also noticed that all the slain goblins were missing their magic stones. Xenov says he saw all the monsters Al summoned during the fight. Al realizes he's been completely exposed and admits the truth. Xenov tells him that Baron Grenville already knew he had talent, which is why he was given the title The Hunter and allowed to leave the city to hunt. Xenov asks him not to hide anything from him anymore and requests that if he goes hunting again, he should at least inform him. Al notices that Xenov's back is covered with scars from countless battles. The next day, Al is shocked by the huge number of experience points he gained after the orc chief's death, 7 times more than the goblins he killed. Later, messengers from the kingdom arrive at the Baron's mansion and deliver Mahai's documents. They inform him, "Your son Mahai fulfilled his duty, but unfortunately he died and has been buried." Everyone present is shocked. The Baron shouts, "How could you allow something like this when you know my son only graduated from the academy 6 months ago?" Mahai's mother collapses in tears from the shock. Al cannot believe it either. He remembers how Mahai asked him to take care of Cecil before leaving. Everyone in the castle is devastated. Prince Grenville tries to comfort his daughter and tells her, "This is a national duty we are all exposed to." But she cries and says, "What's the point of national duty if we all end up dying?" She runs away crying. Later, when Al sits with the head servant, he learns that this isn't the first tragedy in the family. Baron Grenville's father and older brother also died at a young age. Suddenly, they hear screams. They are shocked to discover that that Cecil has disappeared, and no one knows where she went. They learn that she escaped through the window of her room. Al immediately runs into the forest searching for her, hoping that she hasn't been harmed. And here the summary ends for now. So the question remains, will Al be able to find Cecil and save her? If you're excited for the rest of the story, don't forget to support us with a like and subscribe. And if you made it this far, don't forget to send blessings upon the Prophet in the comments. See you again in a new story. Goodbye. We see Cecile in dark alleys, exhausted from walking and sitting in a corner, while looking at the gift her sister gave her. As she does so, she remembers the letter Mihi sent, in which she shared her doubts about what might happen to her. Yes, poor Mihi knew what was going to happen, but pretended otherwise so they wouldn't worry, and Cecile began to cry at the memory. At that moment, Alan arrived, and when she saw him, Cecile asked if he had come to take her home, but he denied it, and explained that he had come to accompany her as her servant. He stood beside her, and Cecile felt flustered by his extreme proximity and asked him to move away, but our hero did not care. Alan took food out of his book, the grimoire, and Cecile began to eat while crying and asked him if her sister was strong, so Alan confirmed this, saying that he had never defeated her. Cecile cried again and remembered her sister's letters in which she confessed her fear. She did not want to die but wanted to return to her family. Cecile said that she might die too, so Alan suggested they run away together and roam the world, but Cecile shouted that it was impossible. However, Alan said they could do that next year when they could register as adventurers. So Cecile remembered that she would turn 12 and enter the academy. Alan told her not to enter it because it was just a school, adding that her life belongs to her and she is the one who decides how to live it, then asked her what she truly wanted. Cecile thought about her sister's words, who said she chose her path by her own decision, and based on that, Cecile decided and asked our hero to take her home. Alan agreed immediately, but Cecile ordered him to carry her, and he had no choice but to do so as her servant. On the way back, Cecile was honest and thanked him for everything he does, and upon their arrival, her family greeted her with hugs and clear concern. Then her father announced new news, which was their ability to mine mithril again, meaning the possibility of obtaining an exemption from noble duties if they handed over the mining rights to another family. Hearing this, Cecile stepped back, wore the support her late sister had given her, and announced that as a member of the Granvelle family, she would perform her duty as a noble and follow Mihi's path. Silence prevailed after her words, but they accepted her decision. In the next scene, several months passed, and our hero continued hunting monsters with his Teddy squad. Alan narrated that the life of the Granvelle family returned to normal, and in the palace, the Baron and Zenov were talking about the smoothness of the mithril mining process, and the Baron expressed his concern about Viscount Carnell because he did not know what he might do after losing his mines. After that, our hero appears climbing a mountain for an unclear reason and said that Cecile could not do this, as she asked to accompany him before his departure, but her father prevented her. At the top of the mountain, Alan found an ant nest, and because he knew it might cause a problem for the miners, he decided to exterminate them voluntarily. He remembered his information about them, as there are more than 1,000 soldiers and a B-rank queen. He inspected the place and found a small entrance, and the challenge began with a team of 6 members, so armored ants appeared in abundance and attacked his team. But after a month had passed, Alan had not finished with the colony and the ants were overcoming him. Due to his fatigue, he thought about how to end the matter, especially since he kills about 2,000 ants a week, and wondered if the queen was eating them and laying more eggs, which would explain their endless emergence and his prevention from obtaining magic stones. Despite this, he was excited about the experience he was gaining and decided to change his strategy by camping there daily. Suddenly, the ants stopped coming out, and Alan shouted at the success of his patience. He approached the nest to finish off the queen and summoned more allies like Hollow, who shared his vision while flying inside. They faced more ants, so Alan summoned others, and upon seeing the egg room, he retreated and tried to send his allies from different paths, but faced difficulty in controlling 8 at once. The colony was like a maze, and Alan felt tired and wanted to go home but did not want to miss the opportunity until Hollow found the armored Ant Queen. After 2 months of farming, Alan entered with the Teddy Squad army like a real player. The queen was 3 times larger than the regular ants. Alan decided to attack the regular ants first so the queen would be left alone, but she killed the bear army quickly. So Alan summoned his allies again and ordered them to attack the queen's belly, and with strong bites they managed to kill her and achieve victory. Alan thought that the queen might have been weak after giving birth to such a massive number of soldiers. He decided to camp there because it was late and searched for evidence of clearing the place and found crystals. The next day, Alan returned home proudly and showed the structure of the Ant Queen from the White Dragon Mountain. Everyone was amazed, and Cecile did not believe him, while Zenith said that he had never seen an Ant Queen before, and that the knights themselves do not have the power to defeat an entire colony due to its complexity. Alan admitted the difficulty of the matter, and that he succeeded thanks to his summons. Then he took out of his bag the mithril medal he found in the queen's room, so the adults recognized it and asked for details. The 3 went to the office, and Cecile remained in the palace. Alan presented 2 maps of the location and the path of the mine, and the Baron confirmed that he had found the 5th vein of mithril. Because of that, the Baron forgave him for his illegal departure and promised him 30% of the mining rights. Our hero did not fully understand the matter, but realized it was something big. As the scene changed, months passed and our hero reached a certain age. And while he was working, he mentioned that the mithril vein would be operational next year. He thought about how different his life was from what he expected. Instead of being an adventurer, he became a servant to a noble family. While he was thinking, Rakel informed him of the arrival of the royal messenger. Alan wondered about the reason, and the scene shifted to the dining room where the messenger was accompanied by Viscount Carnell, so our hero suspected a problem. The Baron asked about the reason for the visit, and the messenger explained that they had learned about the condition of the mines and came to offer an agreement to merge the management of the White Dragon Mountain between the Baron and Viscount Carnell and share the profits equally. He added that he had contacted the Ministry of Justice to draft the contract. Everyone realized it was the Viscount's idea, so the Baron rejected the offer, saying that he must head to the royal capital first to examine the situation. The messenger became angry, described him as greedy, and left threatening that his greed would lead to his destruction. The Baron struck the table in anger at the injustice after their century of patience, and asked about Zenith. So Sebas told him he was in the mountain and would return after 2 days, so the Baron decided to go to the capital as soon as he returned. In the kitchen, the head chef asked about the contract, and Rakel confirmed that it might benefit both parties. But Alan doubted the matter, knowing the danger of the Viscount. His doubts were proven true when he heard a woman scream. He ran to help and found Cecile being kidnapped. Alan attacked the kidnappers with his sword, but one of them blocked his attack easily. Alan changed his stats and was able to keep up with them, while Sebas informed the Baron of the kidnapping. One of the kidnappers noticed they were drawing attention, so he used a smoke bomb that knocked Alan unconscious. Alan woke up and found Cecile tied up, but he was able to summon Chappie, who shared his vision, and he saw that they were in a warehouse inside what looked like a ship. A person named Draga entered and asked about the reason for kidnapping the 2 children, so Marcus replied that the boy is skilled with the sword and can be sold as a slave. Draga hit him, threatened to cut him up, and ordered the boy to be killed immediately if a problem occurred. The kidnappers described Draga as an expert warrior and the only one capable of facing Xenov. They talked about Xenov and how he lost his group in the war, pointing out that war is only for those who want to die. Alan realized there was an ongoing war and that there was no point in waiting for help. Alan decided to end the matter himself, but he feared the loss of his mithril sword. He took advantage of one of the kidnappers leaving to check the escape route via Chappie and discovered they were in a flying magic ship. He remained calm, looking for an opportunity upon landing. Chappie heard 2 men talking about the mining rights and how they sent a warning letter to the Granville family not to interfere, and since the Baron refused to sign, they thought about sending his daughter's hand to force him. Alan understood the reason for Cecile's kidnapping, and when Cecile woke up frightened, one of the kidnappers said they were approaching Carnell territory. Alan decided to move immediately and summoned Papillon, the butterfly, to put the guards to sleep, then undid his restraints and announced that the time for revenge had come. Concludes our episode for today. To follow more, please subscribe to the channel and activate the bell icon to receive all the latest updates. One of the bandits lunges at our protagonist, but Alan summons his team, a move that completely bewilders the outlaws. Seizing the moment, Alan immediately neutralizes both of them. He then moves to untie Cecil, but Draga suddenly appears and, with supernatural speed, slams our protagonist against the wall. On his knees and realizing he cannot win a direct fight, Alan opts to escape. Just as Draga is about to capture him, Alan uses Chappie to mimic his boss's voice and summons Spidey to hold him back. Immediately, Alan grabs Cecil and flees, leaving 2 bronze to block the exit. Upon opening a window, they realize they are too high up, so Alan increases his resistance. Cecil begs him not to do it, but Alan ignores her and jumps without hesitation. It's clear her opinion doesn't weigh much here. Upon landing, he is seen writhing in pain as he feels his bones shatter, yet he recovers using one of his grimoire pages. Now more recovered than ever, he tells Cecil it is time to return to the estate. As he finishes untying her, Cecil bombards him with questions about what just happened. Alan evades her queries and suggests they head for the city as quickly as possible. They are seen running at full speed while the Hollows monitor the area. Suddenly, they spot Draga heading toward them. To lose him, Alan navigates through every street and rooftop until he reaches the wall, using the bronze to avoid leaving any footprints. Once in a safe place, they stop to rest. The following day, they continue their escape. Alan uses his summons to track Draga's location, discovering that he planned to search for them by circling around. Knowing this, Alan decides to travel by air using the bronze. Several days pass, and one afternoon they reach the border. The soldiers there receive them, but Alan realizes their tracks have already been discovered. Knowing they aren't safe, he decides to keep moving. Exhausted, Cecil asks him to leave her behind and escape alone. Alan refuses, making it clear he made a promise to Mihai and will keep it at all costs. While still fleeing from Draga, Alan heals Cecil. Suddenly, Hollow senses a merger lash, a creature Alan fought 3 years ago. Being pursued from 2 sides complicates things, so our protagonist decides to face it, throwing all his heavy hits until it dies. He sends in Spidey and Teddy. Both fight to defeat it but are easily overcome, and Alan is caught by the creature to be devoured. Seeing this, Cecil is completely shocked. However, it turns out Alan wasn't swallowed. His legs were caught between its teeth, allowing him to instantly drive a dagger into its eye, while an electric shock surged through its body, successfully killing the creature. Happy to gain more experience, Alan thanks his 3 years of preparation. Cecil, worried, checks on Alan, who explains he used a healing leaf to recover, when suddenly, Draga appears right in front of them. Concerned because he is out of options and ammunition, Alan tells Cecil to take cover as Draga delivers the first blow, sending Alan to the ground wounded. At that moment, Cecil casts a spell to distract him. Our protagonist tells Cecil not to cast another spell, but she does so anyway, and Draga appears behind her, striking her down. Alan calls him a coward, mentioning what he heard about him on the ship and calling him a loser for having to make a living fighting children. This infuriates Draga, who beats him repeatedly. However, Alan smiles, telling Draga that now he won't be able to escape. At the most critical moment, Senoff arrives and confronts Draga, who leaves Alan aside to attack with fury. Draga insults Senoff, accusing him of being a mere servant to nobles while he and his comrades fought and died on the battlefield. Consumed by rage, he vows to avenge them. However, Senoff remains unmoved. Rabella, who also lost comrades, states she will not allow their sacrifice to be dishonored. With determination, she releases all her power and defeats him with a single devastating attack. After the battle, everyone returns safe and sound. Alan reveals the truth about Viscount Carnell and the royal messenger, which infuriates the Baron. Although the Baron initially decides to report it directly to the king, Alan proposes a more strategic alternative, using the mithril mining rights as a bribe to force an investigation. The Baron accepts, recognizing his own ingenuity. As a result, the Carnell fief is dissolved, giving rise to the so-called Granville Incident. Later, Alan and Cecil learn about the world and the duty of nobles. They discover the threat of the Demon Lord, who decades ago unleashed a catastrophe that devastated several countries. Despite an alliance between continents, the war continues, led by the hero Elmios, who changed the course of the conflict from a very young age. It is also revealed that talented nobles must complete 3 years of military service, where many lose their lives. Finally, Alan receives rewards for his achievements and decides to accompany Cecil to the academy. He resigns from his position as a servant, protects his family from taxes, and accepts his new path. Reflecting on his life, Alan realizes his reincarnation was no accident. Everything he experienced prepared him to face extreme challenges. With that conviction, he accepts his destiny. Wait for us in a coming anime next week, but you must be a subscriber to the channel and activate the bell button so that everything new reaches you.
A video game addict entered a mysterious game on the hardest possible mode, but woke up inside it as a weak servant with no magic at all. Everyone thought he was just a servant who would not survive a single day, but they had no idea that Alan was hiding a rare class and a terrifying power capable of summoning an entire army. Before we begin, tell us in the comments, which country are you watching from? Our second season begins with Alan finally returns home to visit his family. His brothers welcome him first, followed by his parents. Later, during dinner, Alan's mother tells him that, thanks to him, the family has plenty of food, so he can eat whatever he wants. Alan thanks her but notices that his little sister is watching him cautiously. His father explains that she was only 1 when Alan last saw her, so she has no memory of him. Alan is surprised because he always sent her letters and believed they were close. His mother is also worried because he keeps sending them money. She asks whether he is saving enough for himself, but Alan tells her not to worry. He is no longer a servant of the Granville family. He has become their guest, and he will soon leave for Academy City. Alan explains that sending money may become difficult at the academy, so he gives them 100 gold coins. They refuse at first, but Alan says he already has 600 saved from selling armored ant shells. His little brother asks whether they were monsters. Alan says he defeated many armored ants on White Dragon Mountain, along with an army of orcs and goblins. When it is time to leave, Alan says goodbye because he still has work waiting for him. His little sister asks whether the letters in front of her are the ones he sent. Alan confirms it, and she suddenly hugs him. He apologizes for not visiting more often before beginning his journey back. At the Granville mansion, Alan is cleaning as usual when Cecil asks why he is sweeping, even though he is no longer a servant. Alan says that he wants to help until they leave for the academy. Cecil then asks whether he is truly sure about going with her to Academy City, since he is no longer tied to the noble's promise. Alan replies that his job is to protect her. Kurina and Dagora soon arrive at the mansion. Alan introduces them to Cecil. Cecil greets them properly, while Kurina gives her a much rougher handshake. Alan asks whether they are ready for the entrance exam. Kurina says that they have trained hard, but Alan reminds them that there is also a written section, and it becomes clear that Kurina has barely studied anything. At lunch, Mr. Granville tells everyone to make themselves comfortable. Kurina and Dogora eat without restraint, making Granville laugh and Cecil panic over their manners. Later, Kurina even jumps on the bed. Kurina and Dagora discuss dungeons and monsters. Cecil asks whether they should tell them about the war. Alan says they should wait, although they will eventually need to know that their lives may be in danger. Kurina is expected to become a baroness after graduation and may have to go to war. 3 days later, Alan, Cecil, Kurina, and Dagora leave for Academy City. The Granville workers, the adventurers Alan met, and the Order of Knights gather to see them off. After a long journey, they arrive at Wrath Academy. Cecil says that around 20,000 applicants take the entrance exam each year. At the evaluation desk, the receptionist asks them to undergo the same kind of appraisal ceremony they received at age 5. Dogora goes first and sees that none of his abilities have changed despite his training. Cecil receives excellent results, including an S rank in intelligence. Kurina is revealed to be the famous sword lady, but she is disappointed because her stats have also remained the same since childhood. Alan believes this is normal because the evaluation only shows the speed at which someone can develop. Then Alan takes the test. Everyone expects an impressive result, but even though the crystal shines brightly, every one of his abilities is ranked E. His title is Summoner, and he is immediately told that he has failed. Alan cannot believe it. Although a text error on his status has been corrected, the effects of Hell Mode still appear to be slowing his growth. Cecil and the others protest. An elf and a blue-haired man approach. Cecil says that the machine must be broken because Alan defeated a murder gorse, and she witnessed it herself. The blue-haired man is surprised because defeating one at Alan's age is remarkable. They examine Alan's attributes and say they have never seen results like his before. The elf explains that Master Ren once predicted that someone with every attribute at E would appear. He calls the blue-haired man Elos, and the group is shocked to learn that he is the hero meant to bring hope to humanity. Elos uses an appraisal ability to inspect Alan more closely and sees that he has high intelligence and 1,600 mana. Alan realizes that Elos is exposing his abilities and thinks he should keep quiet. Elos finds it strange that Alan has so much intelligence, but cannot use normal magic, which annoys Alan even more. They allow Alan to continue the exam on one condition. He must show Elos what he can do as a summoner. Cecil asks Alan to summon something, but he covers her mouth so she will not reveal too much. Alan says he has no reason to show his abilities to someone he does not know. Elos introduces himself, but Alan insists on inspecting Elos too. Elos agrees. Alan sees that Elos truly has the hero title. All of his stats are ranked A, and he specializes in physical attacks. When Elos asks him to demonstrate his talent, Alan only summons a small mouse. Since he was promised that this would be enough to take the exam, he leaves after doing so. Elos comments that Alan is unusual. Karena barely passes the written exam with a C, but all 4 are accepted. They decide to rent a house rather than use the academy dormitories, but first they go to the Adventurers Guild for their cards. The receptionist explains that C, B, and A rank dungeons have a boss and treasure chest at their deepest level. Alan asks whether the guild can supply D rank magic stones. He takes out 100 gold coins and orders 10,000 stones. She accepts but needs a week to prepare them. Alan wants around 2 million stones during his 3 years at the academy. Everyone receives an E rank adventurer card. Since they are already traveling together, the receptionist asks whether they want to register a party. Alan agrees, and when asked for the name, he chooses No Life Gamers. Alan explains that it describes people who devote themselves completely to becoming stronger. They like it. In his previous world, Alan had to balance gaming with work, but in this world, he can finally become a true no-life gamer. The house they rent is large because groups of 10 or 20 often live together in Academy City. Once they settle in, Alan explains his and Cecil's long-term goal. They tell Karena and Dagora about the coming war, and Alan says that he will fight beside Cecil to defeat the Demon King. Karena immediately chooses to join them. Alan warns Dagora that half the people who go to the front lines never return alive. Dagora says he wants to become greater than a knight, and if defeating the Demon King can help him do that, he will join as well. A message appears in Alan's magical notebook. Karena, Cecil, and Dagora have joined his party. They can now see the notebook too. Alan understands that this is because they are officially one group. Karena asks how they should prepare. Alan says they will eventually need a cleric who can heal them. He also reveals that his skills develop 100 times more slowly than normal, so he needs large amounts of mana and magic stones to overcome his trials. He hopes to find an item in a dungeon that will help him restore mana. The next day, their teacher Karlova introduces himself. He is the guild master of the Royal Capital Adventurers Guild, and his talent is Sword Master. He was called to teach that year because one of the students is a sword lady. Karlova warns that any score below 40 will be an F. Servants, commoners, and nobles are equal inside the academy. Only talent matters. Alan says he will no longer speak to Cecil politely. Cecil gets angry and starts choking him, and Karlova says they are setting a wonderful example. The group's academy life continues with lessons in magic, combat, tactics, and more. On their first day off, they enter Dungeon C205. At the entrance, a strange Rubik's Cube-like object introduces itself as the general operation system of Dungeon C205. It explains that each party receives separate, isolated rooms, so other adventurers cannot enter their route. Alan is relieved because he can use his summoning abilities without anyone seeing them. The cube opens the entrance, and Alan summons Hawkins to map the dungeon. Dagora says the ability is useful because it saves them time. As they advance, Alan tells them to ignore treasure chests because they may contain little value or traps. His goal is to clear the C-rank dungeon quickly and move on to B rank. He studies the group's stats and becomes excited because his team is strong. A slime appears, and Cecil immediately destroys it with magic. Alan collects its mana stone because it can help him create recovery items. The group keeps moving and defeats every monster in their path. Karena and Dagora reach level 22, while Cecil reaches level 9. At the next dimensional cube, they learn they can save their progress and return later from the same point. They decide to rest after clearing the first floor. They attend classes and use days off to advance through the dungeon. Because it resets each time, Alan can send his summons to farm monsters and collect stones even while he is in class. By clearing one floor a day, he gains around 200 magic stones. Eventually, the group reaches the final floor. Cecil asks Alan to show them his real strength. Alan explains that he used 35,000 D-rank magic stones to create recovery items and raise his enhanced skill to level 6. At that level, It can increase 2 attributes of a summoned creature by 500 points. The others do not fully understand it, but they see the result. Alan summons his army and destroys the monsters in seconds. The chest contains only a sword, but they still celebrate. Back at the Adventurers Guild, they register their progress and have their cards upgraded to D rank. They sell the sword for 2 gold coins. The group is excited to keep growing stronger, unaware that a suspicious boy is watching them from nearby. And with that, Alan and his team took their first real step toward becoming stronger. But the appearance of that mysterious boy proves that what is coming next will be far more dangerous. What do you think the boy watching Alan is hiding? Will he become an enemy or an ally? Share your predictions in the comments and do not forget to like and subscribe so you do not miss the next part.